I always like to end on a positive note, so here is a rousing, uplifting song which is guaranteed to cheer you up. We'll bake together when we bake. There'll be nobody present at the wake. With complete participation in that grand incineration, nearly 3 billion hunks of well-done steak.
I'm vibing!
Just to let you know, I met a gal from old Bordeaux. She had blonde hair and blue eyes too.
Let me ride on the ring-dang-doo, the ring-dang-doo. Now what is that? It's soft and round like a pussy cat. Got a hole in the middle and split in two. That's what you call the ring-dang-doo.
Took me down into her cellar, said that it was a mighty fine fellow. Fed me wine,
whistle me too. Let me ride on the ring-dang-doo, the ring-dang-doo. Now what is that? It's soft and round like a pussy cat. Got a hole in the middle and split in two. That's what you call a ring-dang-doo.
Her father come in, angrily said, now you have lost your maidenhead. Pack your bags and coat bags too.
Make your living off the ring-dang-doo, the ring-dang-doo. Now what is that? Soft and round like a pussy cat. Got a hole in the middle and split in two. That's what you call a ring-dang-doo.
She went off to be a whore, hung this sign upon her door.
$1 each and 3 for 2. Take your crack at the ring-dang-doo, the ring-dang-doo. Now what is that? Soft and round like a pussy cat. Got a hole in the middle and split in two. And that's what they call a ring-dang-doo.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, one and all. I've missed you. But now we can be together. Together again. Discussing mid-generation upgrades that are not really that needed, that are also quite expensive, and missing a ton of stuff that was considered standard. But don't think about that. Don't think about that. Just buy it. Shut up and buy it. just shut up. It feels like that's the whole reaction. That's the whole expectation from Sony right now. Is just like, shut up. Don't think about it. Shut up. Be quiet. You're gonna like it. Take it. Man. Okay, what's everybody's reaction? Because I guess we gotta just talk about it. There's no sense in dilly-dallying, as it were. News segment. So this morning they revealed the PlayStation 5 Pro, which was heavily leaked and everybody knew that this was coming. But they actually revealed it officially, PS5 Pro. And Matt Cerny showed up.
Take just a minute to look at what we put in the original PlayStation 5 and how it delivers an exceptional gaming experience.
So he does kind of like a roundup of what they've done so far, of what the previous PS5 was capable of, and then he starts going through some of the shortcomings. But the interesting thing about these types of reveals is they can't put down the old product, right? They can't say it's bad, because they still want a lot of people to buy it. Because this is not the PlayStation 6 where they're stopping the PS5. This is the PlayStation 5 Pro. This is supposed to be another option if you're wanting to buy a PS5. For some people, it'll be just a straight up upgrade. But for a lot of people, like, this is potentially their first step into the generation. So Sony can't badmouth the PS5. So they have to kind of toe this line of saying, like, the PS5 is an amazing piece of technology. They always do this with their hands for some reason. It's an amazing piece of technology, but we think we can go further. So look at this. We have the fidelity mode. And if we crank these settings and we introduce this technology, we can achieve higher frame rates. And to me, I don't find it to be that compelling a pitch, honestly, because there's demonstrably shortcomings this generation, I think, with a lot of the hardware, but it feels like they're just walking the line. And I do think you're right, Rockley. They follow in the line of just putting AI on everything. So it's like, oh, we have this. Oops, I didn't. We have this. We have fidelity mode. How could we make this sound even more cutting edge and perhaps most importantly, get investors like super excited? I know. There we go. AI fidelity mode. That's like the extent of it. Just throw AI on anything and it's supposed to be way better. But let's continue. Let's hear him out. He's going to describe how fidelity mode / performance mode is one of the big decisions right now. But he actually revealed a stat that, as far as I know, was not made public before, and you'll see it. Specifically, how many people are choosing performance mode versus graphics mode? If you haven't watched this, what do you think the percentage is?
Modes emphasize the visuals, typically through higher resolution rendering. These modes might also have enhanced detail or use more ray tracing. But the games only run at 30 frames per second.
Yeah, yicky, icky, gross. 30 frames? What am I, a farmer?
The visuals can be choppier and the controls less responsive. Performance modes emphasize frame rate and interactivity, typically choosing to run at 60 frames per second. Mainly by reducing the graphical detail until those frame rates can be achieved.
Now, real quick, I do want to defend Sony on one point here. One of the stupidest narratives I've seen so far today, which is people pulling up the Twitter version of the video, or X, whatever, and comparing those side by sides. If you don't know this somehow, I'm sorry. Twitter compression, X compression for video and pictures is unbelievably bad. Like, if you have any detail in a picture or a video, do not put it, for the love of God, on Twitter or X. Like, just don't. It will make it look like your screen is covered in Vaseline. On YouTube, it's still a problem. The bit rates are always not great. They've started doing what's it called? AV1 encoding with like VP9. And if you pull up stats for nerds on YouTube, you can actually see what codec they're using. This is VP9, which is a much better codec than like H.264 and things like that, that they use. But the point is, YouTube's better. YouTube's a lot better, but it's still a common issue, is that compression in these videos makes it hard to kind of see the difference. But I will say, when you zoom in on this with the full high bitrate selection on YouTube, oh God, what did I do? You can see a difference, you know, not just the pixelation around the head versus sharper edges over here. Density of foliage is also higher on the left versus the right. If you go far away, you can see a lot more detail over on the left versus far away on the right. So there is a difference. Is it night and day? Is it like, oh God, this is a generational leap? No, it's not. And I think that that's where a lot of people are coming from, is they're looking at this like, okay, it's a $700 machine, spoiler alert, and it doesn't really seem like a huge leap. You have to really look for it, you know? You have to really look for the difference.
When asked to decide on a mode, players are choosing performance about 3/4 of the time.
Thank you, Carl, by the way. I see a lot of other people re-upping their memberships and follows and stuff. Thank you for that. I'll go through those in just a minute. Thank you, my friends. Thank you so much.
Removing that decision, or at least narrowing that divide, is one of the key targets for PlayStation 5 Pro.
Mark's, he's a legend, no doubt. But he also seems like the kind of guy that drinks tea with every meal. You know what I mean? Do you get that vibe? There's just some people like that. He just seems like he drinks tea with every meal. Not a bad thing. Probably good for you. I should do that instead of having a bucket of coffee.
We want to give players the graphics that the game creators aspire to, at the high frame rates that players typically prefer. To do that, PS5 Pro substantially improves over PlayStation 5 in 3 ways. Here's what we call the big 3.
The biggest 3. The biggest 3. Larger GPU. Advanced ray tracing as opposed to not advanced ray tracing. And then AI, there's the buzzword letter, whatever, driven upscaling. Let's see what this actually is.
First, we made the GPU much larger and increased the speed of the memory it uses. The result is rendering that's up to 45% faster.
Up to?
Second, we made major upgrades to the ray tracing, taking a streamlined and accelerated approach that allows calculation of the rays at double or even triple the speeds of PlayStation 5.
Again, I appreciate the improvement, but I will die on this hill, I think. I would much rather high quality baked lighting than ray tracing that halves the frame rate. I love ray tracing. I think it looks great. I play Cyberpunk with like the overdrive ray tracing stuff turned on because I am spoiled and very fortunate and I have a supercomputer that can run it. Even then, it greatly affects performance, and a lot of developers have not really mastered the fine art of optimizing it. And you pretty much have to rely on upscaling stuff to make it hit even decent frame rates. So I just think ray tracing, it can look really good, but for a lot of games, I feel like most people will never really appreciate it. And you can see it where ray tracing is often limited to the fidelity mode, and you're about to see like, maybe he says it after this, or maybe he already said it, but basically he says that about 3/4 of players play on performance mode, not on fidelity mode, which is crazy. It's like people are choosing to turn it off because they'd rather 60 frames. So I just don't think the ray tracing is that big of a sell. Maybe like 5 years ago, but.
And finally, we added custom hardware for machine learning and an AI library called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, or PSSR for short.
Also, I think we should pioneer the pronunciation, not PSSR. It's Pisser. The PS5 Pro. It comes with an improved GPU, improved ray tracing hardware, and Pisser.
PSSR analyzes the game images pixel by pixel and can add an extraordinary amount of detail, which boosts the effective resolution of the games. Game creators are adding PS5 Pro support to new and existing titles, and with the big three involved, the results can be pretty amazing.
Yeah, notice one of the noticeably absent things in the discussion of the big three. They have improved like a bigger GPU, dedicated like or improved ray tracing stuff, which technically are the same thing, and then AI upscaling. So 2 of the 3 are the same thing. And then the other is Pisser. So what's missing? Well, CPU enhancements and improvements. Any game that is CPU limited, this doesn't fix anything. Like, you can have a better GPU, but it doesn't affect it if you're CPU bound. So for example, like a lot of console games specifically are CPU limited because they develop for the lowest common denominator, and cranking the GPU can maybe, it's like the equivalent of cranking the texture quality in settings on a PC or something, but it won't actually like greatly improve frame rates or anything because that's not what's holding that back. It's the CPU is the bottleneck that's preventing everything. So it like won't actually do that much. The easiest way, because I'm a visual person and I appreciate that if we just draw over this. The reason, and I say this just because I saw somebody in the comment section that was like, I don't understand why you're calling it a bottleneck. What does that name come from? It's because with a bottle, you have a bottle that comes to a point. This is the CPU. This is what's limiting the flow out of the bottle, right? Everybody on the same page? Cranking the GPU is great, but that's effectively just like making this bigger on the back end. It doesn't actually change how much can flow through. It maybe increases your capacity. All of this is added. So it did do something, but it's not actually going to change the flow of the liquid out of it, which is basically the frame rate. So as far as I can tell, for a lot of games, that's what they've done here, is they've allowed you to crank texture quality and stuff, but they haven't actually allowed you to crank frame rates because the CPU is going to be the same. And that's, for a lot of games, the limiting factor.
With graphics showing something like fidelity levels of detail, but it doubled the frame rate. Here's The Last of Us Part 2 running on PS5 Pro.
I will give them credit for this. I was just playing The Last of Us Part 2 the other night. I was just feeling an itch to go and kill some scars. And so I loaded it up and went ham. And this does look much better than the version that's running on the PS5 now on performance mode. The specifically density of foliage.
It has huge amounts of detail and targets a super smooth 60 frames per second.
Yeah. And this is after compression. So I do think this looks really, really good. Does it look $700 good? You guys know me. I love spending money frivolously. It's a passion of mine. As a YouTuber, it's almost like an obligation to be irresponsible. And even I am struggling to justify it in my head, you know? Really struggling.
Let's compare this.
And when you compare it side by side, again, compressed, it's kind of hard to tell because YouTube compression's doing its thing, even with it at 4K, highest possible bitrate. Even now, I think a lot of people are struggling to see the difference.
To the fidelity mode on PS5.
Yeah, notice they go to fidelity mode, not performance mode. Like, looking at it side by side, I honestly am struggling to find a difference, but I think that's the point, is they're showing, hey, we can achieve the fidelity mode's quality, but at 60 frames over here. And so you're supposed to be like, wow, therefore I should get the PS5 Pro because I can play it on fidelity quality, but at 60 frames. Maybe a more fair side-by-side is to show me the performance mode. Let's see.
Which is only running at 30 frames per second and is therefore much choppier.
Don't stop! We gotta lose.
This goal of delivering almost fidelity-like graphics at performance frame rates has been achieved for a broad set of titles, including Marvel's Spider-Man 2 and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. We can
Again, I think this is so important to notice. They are comparing it to the fidelity mode on PS5, not to the performance mode. Because I think if they were to do performance mode, you'd be like, yeah, like it looks worse. The performance mode looks worse. They definitely turned off some bells and whistles, but like it doesn't look that much worse. You know?
can see that PS5 Pro is close to doubling the power of PlayStation 5. Another way to compare the two consoles is to look at PS5 Pro versus performance mode on PS5.
Thank you.
Both of which target 60 frames per second.
Now we're talking.
What we see here is a difference in detail.
Yeah, ew, gross. This is where those comparisons on like X are just not frankly fair. Because if this is hyper compressed, as you're watching this on a live stream in this full frame, you probably can't tell much of a difference. But if I zoom in and you look at the guy here, and then you compare it to him over here, there is a lot more detail in the chain behind him, the door. Here it's almost completely lost. It's just like a solid object because the upscaler is trying to figure out what the hell to do with it. Whereas here it's actually rendered out with much more detail. Up here in the trees and the windows, the brick especially, there's a lot more detail. In here, like this is very difficult to render. Very fine detail far away. Unpredictable detail too with the barbed wire. And if we go over here, you can see almost all of that is lost. Like the barbed wire just blends in with the green behind it. It's just gone. So there is a huge quality difference, but you really have to look for it. And I think that's the problem that people are going to have. If you're watching these videos on YouTube or especially on like X where the compression's so horrible, you're not going to see any real detail difference. On my monitor here, I can immediately tell a difference here on the foliage and stuff. But again, is that enough to justify a $700 upgrade? To each their own.
PS5 Pro is much sharper and crisper than PS5.
Oh, the sharpness.
For this,
Yeah, I mean, that's also a good side-by-side. Watch out, Ratchet. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just in the letters, like, look at the text. If we do a little side-by-side. Here, you can't even make out the word on the left side, whereas on the right, you can clearly make out Fedra. The windows just looks like a solid piece of, like, glass, whereas down here, you can see that there's an actual, like, wire crosshatch thing inside to reinforce it. So there is clearly a lot of detail that is present in the right on the PS5 Pro that is missing on the left to achieve 60 frames. Absolutely. When you zoom out to the shot before, are most people going to notice that or feel like that difference between this glass and this glass is worth a $200 price difference or a $700 upgrade? I think more people are going to be less convinced than more convinced, but
PS5 Pro is much sharper and crisper than PS5.
oh, the crispness.
For this, my favorite is the parade scene from Ratchet and Clank. Distant details are much clearer.
Yeah, this one's very clear cut. Absolutely. But whenever you have to zoom in that much to demonstrate the difference, chances are you at home will not notice the difference unless you're playing on, of course, you have to be playing on a 4K TV, but it has to be a big one. I used to sell TVs, as you guys know. I used to sell them at first through Best Buy and then with their like partner company that they bought out, Magnolia Home Theater, which sold all the luxury stuff. And it's because like if you have a small TV that you sit 10 feet away from, doesn't really matter if that 40-inch TV is 4K or 1080p. You probably aren't going to see the difference from 10 feet back. Once you go to like 65 inches or 75 inches, a big TV, then you can start to see the difference when you go to 4K, which is why they encourage you to do that. Once you get to like 8K resolutions, the screen has to be the size of like a movie theater for it to even be visible to the naked eye. So it's just not that practical for most people. But with this stuff, like you're only really seeing detail differences and sharpness differences when you zoom in that much. So I think most people, if you're playing on like anything certainly below a 65-inch TV, you probably aren't even going to notice a difference, frankly. Like in terms of sharpness, I don't think you'll notice anything.
And here we can see Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is noticeably higher resolution throughout the scene, including the trees and procedural cars. So overall, some remarkable improvement to the games. On PS5 Pro, we can see increased sharpness to the graphics or smoother and more responsive gameplay. This is the big three showing their value.
Again, I just want to remind you that the GPU and ray tracing are basically the same thing. And then AI-driven upscaling is just upscaling, which, again, is like a shortcut to give you faster frame times by rendering at lower resolutions. So they're giving you a bigger GPU as these two, and then they're using their own proprietary upscaler so they can render at lower resolutions to get better frame rates.
As you've been seeing, machine learning via the PSSR library is being used quite broadly to add pixel detail and boost frame rate.
Dude, I really wish they would have just called it Pisser. Thanks to the Pisser library.
Power is being especially effective for Horizon Forbidden West. Apart from the detail boost, that extra graphics power is allowing for improvements to lighting and visual effects, as well as to the hair and the skin in cinematics.
Open up, guys. George.
Every time I see Horizon, I know a lot of people love it, but every time I see Horizon, I just think of like, stop trying to make fetch a thing. It's not going to be a thing. Stop. It's like, it's fine, but I don't think it's like this big. I don't know. I know I'm in my own bubble, but I'm not that crazy. Yeah, Jor loved this part. Jor's like, oh, thank God, Aloy's back.
'Sorry.
God, I love Jor.
Enough for me.
Ray tracing is finding broad usage as well, particularly when the games are focused on higher frame rates. The faster hardware in PS5 Pro can make a real difference.
I'm sorry, when he talks, this is totally unrelated, and I'm sure, again, I've never met Mark Cerny. I'm sure he's an amazing guy. Seems like he's a legend. But the way he's talking to the camera makes me feel like he's describing how he's about to murder my entire family if I don't do what he wants. You know, it's like, you're going to go and deposit this money at the bank. Otherwise, your family is going to be strung. Like, I feel scared.
Higher frame rates. The faster hardware in PS5 Pro can make a real difference.
Doesn't he kind of give off supervillain energy? Just like a little bit? Just a little bit?
Allowing Gran Turismo 7 to add ray-traced reflections between the cars in gameplay, while continuing to support their targeted 60 frames per second. That boost in ray tracing is also delivering big wins for Hogwarts Legacy.
I'm actually low-key surprised that they did not reveal like anything specific during this. You know, I do think obviously this looks a lot better than the standard version on console. On PC, like, this isn't that obviously that big of an improvement. On PC, I think the game even runs and looks better than this, but that's to be expected. But I was expecting them to at least have like Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut. It's a brand new upcoming game, specially designed to take advantage of the PS5 Pro hardware, but like they don't have anything specific to showcase with this, which I found surprising. It does obviously look improved, so I'll give them that, but I was just expecting at least something, you know?
Allowing not only for better reflections and a greater variety of reflective surfaces, but also for further realism in the casting of shadows. I hope you've enjoyed this run-through of the technology behind PlayStation 5 Pro. Simply put, it's the most powerful console we've ever built, and a worthy addition to the PS5 family. Let me wrap this up by giving you a quick look at a number of games running on the new console.
You'll never
And then they show it, and it is basically the PS5, but ribbed for our pleasure. And they're about to show the most insane thing of this entire reveal. Okay, in a minute, they're about to show the most insane thing as part of this reveal. I thought they showed it there, but not yet. They show some various games running on it. Again, like, it's just tough when there's no side-by-side because this is not a generational leap. So it doesn't feel like a huge improvement. And so you're looking for the difference. And honestly, like, if you told me this was just a PS5 sizzle reel, I would have believed you. Nothing in here looks like it's exclusive to the PS5 Pro. It looks like just PS5 games that look pretty good and are running pretty well. And that's that. So I think it's going to be a tough sell for the people in the middle of the aisle. That said, there are a lot of people that will still buy this, and I still think that this is going to sell out everywhere, to be perfectly clear. Not just like YouTubers that are buying it so that when they review PS5 games, you know, it looks the best it can, which is par for the course. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are just casual fans of the PlayStation that are going to be down to buy this, because I just think, you know, even other stuff that they've done has sold out surprisingly so. Like even the PSVR 2, they were having trouble keeping that in stock, and everybody kind of agrees that that's just dead. But speaking of dead, this little piece of information left me dead. Look at this. It is a $700 device. $700 in the US. Technically speaking, we'll get to the pricing in other countries in a minute, but $700 in the US. And they're not including the vertical stand, which I'm assuming is just a little piece of plastic. Even if it's metal, they're not including a vertical stand. And I don't know if you noticed with the PS5 Slim that they replaced the base PS5 with. PlayStation. they also changed the stand there. And now, like, if you want to put it horizontal, it's just like a little piece of plastic. It's not even like the big black disc that launched with the PS5 initially. So they've cheaped out even on the other variant. And it is an insanely bad look, in my view, to be cutting out something as simple as a vertical stand and trying to sell that to people separately. It just screams like, our margins are so freaking tight, we have to milk you for every little bitty penny we can. Then they do this, and then the price reveal. $700 US. 700 pounds, 800 euros. Okay, let's just do a little comparison here, okay? Let's do this. Because some of you might be like, wait, those numbers don't really make sense, okay? USD to, let's do euro first, okay? Where's my tab? Where'd it go? Okay. So, $700. Let's be perfectly fair. $6.99. That should translate to about 635 euros. But they're paying 800. What? US without tax, EU with tax. US tax is not anywhere close to that. Sales tax is going to be different depending on where you live. Just in case you're not in the US, it's going to be different. Some areas it's 6%. Some places sales tax is 7%. It just depends on where you live. Some areas it's like 3%. It's just all over the place. But there's that for one. Even a store near me, they have like a shopping center, and there is a dedicated tax for the shopping center. It's like the only way they could get the city to let them build there. So literally, like there's a big road, and if you turn left on the road and go to those stores, you pay an extra, like on average, it's maybe an extra $1 per 150, $200 that you spend in added taxes, versus if you're on that road and you turn right and you shop in the shopping center opposite to the south, there is no tax there because of the way that they did it. It's really weird. And like kind of crazy, but it's literally like that close. You turn left, you pay the tax, you turn right, you don't pay the tax. It's weird. Anyway, that's the thing in the US, absolutely. But the point is, this is well beyond what like Americans are effectively spending in terms of purchasing power. People spending euros for their PS5 Pro are spending a lot more in terms of purchasing power than Americans are. Okay, so just to be perfectly clear there, big difference. As for pounds, to United States dollar, it's probably Great British Pound. Or is it just British Pound? Oh, God. Okay, we're just going to do to pound. To Pound Town. Pound sterling, that's what it was. Okay, pound sterling, my bad. Pound sterling, so again, $6.99 would translate roughly to 530 pounds sterling, but they're paying 700 pounds. Which, even when you factor in sales taxes, VAT taxes, even when you factor all of that in, people in the UK and people in Europe are spending a lot more for their PS5 Pro than Americans are, which is surprising. I did not expect it to be this much of a discrepancy. Usually it's like 700 in the US, and maybe it's like 750 effectively for people in the UK or in Europe or something, but there's a huge gap here, which is why, from what I can tell on social media, a lot of people are excessively upset if they live in the UK and EU about this announcement, because it's such a gap. As for yen, Japanese yen. What is 120,000 yen? Translates to about 842 US dollars. And that does include tax. So even there, like, you're not, if you buy a $700 device in the US, your final bill is not going to end up being $840. So everybody outside of the US is spending a lot more, which, I mean, America is pretty cool. So sorry, not sorry, but that is still a crazy gap. So what I want to do before we catch up on super chats and everything, shout out to the 2,700 people on YouTube, 100 people over on Twitch. Thank you guys for that. I'm gonna do a poll. Okay, we're gonna do a poll. This is anonymous. Okay, and all I'm gonna ask is the PS5 Pro worth the price? I'll say the price, because depending on where you are, it's going to be different. The reason I'm asking is it worth the price is because I don't want you to answer whether you're buying it, because you might have just bought a PS5. You might be a PC only gamer. You might be an Xbox gamer. I don't want you to answer based on your purchase preference. Okay. I want you to answer this based on whether or not you think it's worth, based on what you've seen, $700 when the PS5 is available elsewhere, the Series X is available elsewhere. Okay, so that's why we're framing it that way. And all we're gonna do is yes, no. That's all we're gonna do. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna post it into the chats, and you guys can vote. Okay, let's see. Do I think it's worth $700? No disk drive, which is something else we haven't really touched on while you guys are voting. There is no disk drive. If you want to buy that, that's an additional $80. So if you want a disk drive and a vertical stand, in the US alone, you're probably going to end up spending well over $800. Okay, in Europe, that could take you all the way up towards $1,000 for this thing. Okay, so my personal estimation is that it's not worth this price point, having removed a lot of stuff. That's my opinion. If we look at results, let's see what you guys are saying. Well, I can't say I'm that surprised. I didn't think, honestly, it would be this big of a gap. I was expecting like maybe 70-80% of people would say no. I didn't think we'd be at 95%. Wow. That's pretty funny. Yeah. And more people voting. Yeah, keep voting. If you haven't voted, make sure to vote, because I want an accurate number. But it seems very expensive for what it's doing, because even then you got to pause it, you got to zoom in, spot the differences. 2 of the 3 big features are the same feature. And they've removed stuff like the disk drive and the vertical stand. One question I have they said what the size is? It's 2 terabyte? Yeah, it's 2 terabyte, comes with a DualSense controller and a copy of Astro's Playroom, not Astrobot, pre-installed, so just like the other ones. Should you want to add a disk drive, you can buy the separate drive for $80. I also don't think it looks very good. I just personally, I don't like these lines. I think that it looks really stupid, but that's just me. That's unrelated. Other features of the console include PS5 Pro Game Boost for backwards compatible PS4 games on the console. Okay, that's nice. It will also feature Wi-Fi 7. That's good. Much faster download times. Only if you have a supported router, though, to be perfectly clear. And Wi-Fi 7 routers are expensive. And but then again, if you're spending this much money on a new console in the middle of a gen, maybe it's worth it. And VRR, that's a good feature to have. And 8K. I've heard a lot of people talk about the 8K, the 120 FPS thing. I do want to be clear. Anybody who knew anything about this stuff was laughing when they revealed like the 8K logo on the box. All that meant was, technically speaking, it's capable of outputting an 8K resolution through the cable. That's all they really said. Does anybody actually think that it's like reasonable to get 8K resolution? Like, no. Nobody actually needs that. Here, I'll post the link again for everybody, and I will pin it this time. That way you can vote. Hold on. Pin. I have pinned it. It's been pinned, and then pin. Okay, that way people who come in can vote. So there's that. There's also a calculator with, let's see, ideal TV distance to couch or something calculators. There's been things like that. Yeah, this Artings, these guys are amazing. So for like an 8K resolution, this is based on a 4K TV, I believe. I believe that's what it is. Viewing distance, cinema, like there's a lot of math that goes into it. So like here you can see optimal viewing distance based on the size of the television and resolution. For 4K, Ultra HD is worth it, depending on like, this is view distance versus the size of the display. So if you have a 55-inch TV and you're sitting about 3.5 feet away from it to like 4 feet, then it's optimal viewing distance. You'll be able to see that detail and actually appreciate it. 75-inch TV, you can sit about 4.5 feet-ish, and that's when you'll fully be able to, like, you just can't make out the pixels, but you can fully take in all of the detail and all of that. To get to the point where most people are sitting away from their TV, most people are like, 10, 20, maybe not 20, but they're probably like between 6 and 10 feet away from their display. If you have a 4K TV, in order to really make the most of that, you need to go to like 75, 85, 95 inches to actually like optimally take advantage of that resolution. Okay. For 8K, it's not even close to this. For 8K, the numbers are ridiculous. I've seen them before, and it's like, it's straight up stupid. Like 8K would be something like, it has to be, you have to sit so freaking close to it. At 100 inches, you have to sit 2 feet away from it to be able to see individual pixels. So it's just not practical. So the 8K resolution thing is just madness. It's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But even then, they put it on the box. They talked about 120 frames and 120 FPS. To anybody who knew anything about this stuff, I think they were expecting pretty clearly. That's only going to really apply to games that are like 2D side scrollers. Like obviously, The Last of Us Part 2 is never going to run at 120 frames. And anybody who thinks it is, like, I don't know if that's practical. But they still put it on the box, which either way, like it's the difference between like what a well-educated person in tech would understand is maybe an exaggeration versus what the average consumer is going to take away from that. And I think the average consumer saw all these things listed on the box of the PS5 and thought that's what they were going to be getting later in the generation. And now they're selling you a different thing for a lot more that has missing features like no disk drive, missing vertical stand, stuff like that. And they're saying this will now get you closer to achieving that goal that we told you we were going to try to achieve last time. And it leaves people feeling really ticked off because they feel as though this was supposed to be included last time around. Why are you just now like saying we can get to it in this way? It just doesn't make sense. And I think that this reflects the overall sentiment that most people feel, which is just like, are you kidding me? Like for real? The thing I can't really justify, the disk drive, okay, I think like maybe 80% of their users are buying things mostly digital, so maybe they can just justify it that way. The no vertical stand for a piece of plastic that probably cost them 2 cents to mass produce, that is ridiculous. Like, that is nothing else than a chance to penny pinch every single little thing. Yeah, at Laserbeam, I think you're right. It comes off as an Apple move. And this comes on the back of Apple revealing their stuff. I didn't even watch the Apple event. Normally, I find it fun to check out, but I didn't even watch it because I kind of forgot it was happening. But their whole thing also is like minimal improvements. It looks the same as before. Most of the improvements are being made on the software side this year. It's all like AI stuff. But again, it's put the buzzword on the product and hope people just go along with it, even though it's not been super clear. Like NVIDIA, or rather Sony is introducing this new PSSR, or as I think we were going to call it, the Pisser, the Pisser upscaler. They've introduced that, and that's supposed to make it so that they can achieve even higher levels of detail, right? That's the whole goal. The Pisser. And they've previously used stuff like FSR, which is the AMD version of DLSS, basically. It's just their version of it. But now they're doing their first party thing because they think that they can either do it better. Maybe they just don't want to be beholden to AMD for this technology, so they're going to do their own thing. To me, it comes off as like their attempt at making their own thing to give investors a reason to throw money at them. Because right now on Wall Street, if you have anything even slightly adjacent to AI, investors will just throw hundreds of millions of dollars at you. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It is an actual bubble. There's no reason a company like NVIDIA should be trading on like 50 times earnings. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense mathematically. It is the same thing that happened with the dot-com bubble. It's insane. Not financial advice, just pointing out reality. But I think like this to me just screams, okay, this was a corporate decision to try and get your own stuff in there. Maybe it ends up being really good. Honestly, if it's better than FSR 2, amazing, because FSR has been a plague on a lot of recent games. And I'm saying this as somebody that really appreciates AMD as a company. But like FSR is just not anywhere close to what DLSS is capable of doing. And so I hope this is a lot better than that. But even then, like, my question is, okay, imagine it's a multi-platform game, like a Black Myth Wukong, for example. Their goal eventually is to come to Xbox as well, and at least come into PC and stuff. How does this, like, is this just another toggle in the settings, basically, on PC? Does it come to PC hardware as well? Because presumably, if they're adding in PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, it's something that's going to come to their PC ports as well. Maybe not, but I would imagine so. So is this just going to be their new attempt at breaking into that AI upscaling field? And maybe somebody, if we have any developers in the chat, let me know. Are there any licensing fees associated with these things? I didn't think so. Because like my interpretation is in order to use these upscalers, you have to have the hardware. And so NVIDIA is like, no, you own an NVIDIA GPU. So you effectively have paid for access to the software. But do the game devs have to pay any licensing fee for it? They do pay a licensing fee for DLSS, you think? I'm not sure. Now, DLSS is not open source. PS5 has an AI accelerator for it. All that really means is that there's dedicated hardware on the device that specializes in neural network computations. That's the fancy way of saying it. It's pretty much commonplace in all modern hardware. It's nothing groundbreaking. Like iPhones have it and have had it for years. I remember like 3-4 years ago, Tim Cook going up on stage and, they talked about their neural network processing to specifically enhance pictures. And that was kind of before the AI boom, so they didn't call it AI, whatever, enhanced hardware, whatever. But that's like not at all a new thing. So it's not crazy. Digital Foundry put it between, placed it between a 2080 and a 2080 Ti. Not bad. I mean, I think with all this, it's important to remember the basics, which is that consoles are not built to take on top of the line PCs. That's not what they're trying to do. This freaking supercomputer will outperform the PS5 Pro. It will probably outperform the PlayStation 6. Let's just be honest. But it costs way more, right? Like just the graphics card is more than like, at least when it launched, was more than like 2 PlayStation 5 Pros, okay? It's insane. And I don't say that to flex. My point is comparing the PlayStation 5 Pro to something like this is unreasonable. And it, like, you're of course going to find that the PC is superior because yeah, it better be. You paid a lot more for it. If this cost the same as a PS5 Pro, then it would be unreasonable. But to pretend as though they're one-to-one comparisons is ridiculous. And I know some people are saying for $700, you could just go and get a PC. Why buy a $700 PlayStation 5 Pro when you could just get a PC? And honestly, like a $700 PC with like a 2080 Ti in it, I think is going to be hard to find. I think that's going to be really hard to find. And you got to factor in the other stuff, which is that most people that are playing on console do not have, they do not have like monitors, keyboards, mice and stuff. Like they don't have the rest of the setup. So for them, $700 to get an improved level of fidelity is a good deal. Even now, if we go on Newegg, you can see, of course, the 2080 Ti, my understanding is it's not manufactured anymore, but this one, 2080 Ti, you can get it used, very good condition for $450, shipped from Hong Kong, so you'll get it in like 6 months. Refurbished RTX 2080 Ti, this is the Asus Strix variant, $770, that seems pretty steep. You get a 3080 for $560. This is just NVIDIA. A lot of people have success on like Facebook Marketplace, but again, I'm just going to say it. If you are not comfortable with freaking PC hardware, you're not going to be going and buying used hardware off of Facebook Marketplace. And I know that there's some like PC gamers who are like, it's really easy to build a PC. I agree. I've built many PCs, okay? I'm not disagreeing with you. But let's be completely honest. For the average gamer who's used to gaming on a console, that is a huge undertaking. That is a mountain to climb, is to go and build a PC with new components, much less going and buying used components, which is pretty sketchy. I mean, I don't really buy used computer parts because I got burned with that once, where I bought a used, it was like it was right around the time of Fallout 4. So like 2015, 2016, sometime in there. But I tried buying a used GPU and it worked for like a few months and then it just died one day. And it was like, oh yeah, no, some of these just have problems. It basically seemed like the guy knew that this was potentially going to crap out soon. So he sold it to me and I was the sucker that dealt with it. What GPU was it? I don't even remember. It was an AMD one. It wasn't like an NVIDIA graphics card, but yeah, I couldn't tell you. If I went back and like researched, I could probably find it. But yeah, it's just the point of all of this is that $700 for somebody that is a console gamer, probably, you know, it's certainly a premium product, but I don't think it's that huge of a leap to say that if somebody wants to have the most premium setup possible and they don't want to spend potentially $1,500 on a PC setup to get comparable performance, it's possible. And I've said many times, I think there is a market for premium console hardware. I do think there is a market for like an $800 console, a $1,000 console. I think there even is a market for like a $1,500 PlayStation if they were to do that. The point is, though, the performance and the offering has to be commensurate with that price. It has to be in line with it. And I feel that this PS5 Pro doesn't seem to be doing enough to justify even the $700 price tag. If you're going to buy a $1,500 PS5 Ultra, whatever, it better perform like a $1,500 PC at the very least. It better perform very, very, very well. It better be doing everything cranked out the ass. But I feel like this PS5 Pro for $700 is doing basically what the PS5 should have been doing from the start. It's like, so it just doesn't feel like it justifies that price point. And to remove little bitty things like the vertical stand and to remove the disk drive, to me just seems like penny pinching, margin enhancing BS. You know, it takes us back to the discussion that Hideki Totoki said, the new like CFO of Sony. He came in and reevaluated all of PlayStation, and I'm convinced he pretty much kicked Jim Ryan out and said, "You're gone," because he came in and saw that their margins were at 6%. And there's been many analysts who have talked about this, so don't think that I'm like breaking news here. But basically for every dollar that was being spent, or being taken in rather, you could say, it depends on how you frame it, but they should have been making about 20%, 20 cents a profit on each dollar of revenue that comes in, right? Like, this is how much they should have been taking. Jim Ryan, the way he ran PlayStation, wasting so much money, they were down here. So Totoki, I don't know, Totoki, that guy. He came in and said, "What the hell is this? This is insane. No wonder we're struggling to hit our financial targets. Like, for every dollar we take in, we're barely making anything on it because all of this is just being burned on projects like Concord, on the Last of Us Online project that didn't go anywhere, that got canned. All this money is being wasted. We need to widen that margin." So what does he do? He comes in, and now you're seeing the result of it. He's demanding higher margins. That vertical stand, yeah, it probably cost him 2 cents, but if we can sell it for $5 or $10 a pop to even a million people, that gives us a little bitty edge. That's just enough to make a little bitty difference. Oh, the disk drive, we could include it, but if we don't, then some people will buy it. And that will give us a little bit more. Just a little. Doing our own upscaling instead of relying on other companies. Maybe it attracts investors. Maybe it also means that we can license it out to other game developers. Okay, well, we get a little bit more. That's the whole thing with this. Like, it's so transparent what they're trying to do. They're just trying to widen margins however they can because Jim Ryan was a moron and screwed everything up for so many years that now they're trying to dig themselves out of the hole that he got them in. So what could have been pretty easily a day of celebration and excitement, instead they showed off a piece of hardware that I'm sure is technologically very impressive, and I'm sure like Digital Foundry will come out and they'll show that, oh, it's actually very impressive and they're doing a lot of cool stuff here. But it doesn't matter what it does on paper. What matters is the after effect and the actual like quantifiable feeling and effect for consumers. Because like YouTubers can zoom in 50 times to see the difference between these two side by sides. But if you're playing the console and you don't feel a difference, you don't see a difference, it doesn't frankly matter. And on the flip side, there's just no new games or any new content. Like, they're showing games that are anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 years old in this little presentation to showcase what it's capable of. I mean, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that was what, 2020 or 2021? It was pretty close to a launch title, right? Alan Wake 2, okay, that's a good one to show. An upcoming game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, that's coming. Spider-Man Hogwarts Legacy, that's a good showcase game. Again, I'm surprised that they're not showing off the director's cut version of the game, but that makes me think that that might be a little farther out than we previously thought, but it does look really, really good. So that's a fair one. But it's not like they're coming out swinging with Death Stranding 2 or anything. I thought for sure we were going to see something with Death Stranding 2 in this presentation. They'd be like, look at this amazing sequence only made possible with the power of the PlayStation 5 Pro and the PlayStation 5. And I thought for sure they were going to do that. But instead they're showing games like The Last of Us Part 2 from 2020, which again, still graphically very, very impressive. Nobody's doubting that. But it doesn't look like the leap that it needed to be. So a lot of people feel underwhelmed. And then to reveal that the vertical stand is sold separately is like a thumb in the eye. And then the price points, for some people, they're going to be spending, if they want the disc drive too, they'll be spending the equivalent in US dollars of over $1,000 to get this, which doesn't even feel like that big of a step forward. Yeah, it's got 2 terabytes. That's nice. But with the NVMe SSD, that's not actually that impressive. And it's just really hard to figure out how to justify this. So available starting November 7th. They're bringing it. It's going to come. I don't know if this is one I will even bother getting, because honestly, like, the reason I would get it is to make it so when I play games on PlayStation 5 for review or for videos, it looks the best that it can. So we give every game its best possible chance to wow us, right? Like, there's a reason that I don't play games for review on like the Series S, right? I might test it on the Series S, but the vast majority of footage will be on like PC. But even this, like, there's no games coming out in the immediate term for this. So why buy it now? I legitimately don't know. Like, I'd get it and download some games I've already played 5 times over. It just, again, it reinforces the core idea at the center of PlayStation's previous strategy, which was that games sell consoles, not the console. Like, the console, yeah, it's important. People like more bells and whistles. People like more power. People like this or that. But if there's no games for your console, who cares? Yeah, surprise Bloodborne remake on Pro only. I mean, if this doesn't go well, they might become that desperate and try something crazy. But it just feels, again, like Sony is a ship that is rudderless right now. They don't have a visionary. They don't have a guy at the helm that understands the industry and understands gamers. And instead, they're just trying whatever they can to milk people for everything they're worth. And I mean, you see other stuff like this. Ex-Sony president Chris Deering has said that those affected by the recent industry layoffs should, quote, find a cheap place to live and go to the beach for a year. I think if you asked me to come up with an out-of-touch corporate statement about layoffs, I don't think I could come up with something this egregious. Like, oh my God. You know, it shows you just how out of touch these guys that are making these decisions are. The idea that, like, yeah, you got laid off. Just go to your third house in the Florida Keys and relax for a little while, like a year, and then get back out there and try to find a different job. It's like, sir, I can't pay my rent. It's like, oh, you can't pay rent. That's fine. Just sell some of your stocks. Sir, I don't have stocks. I don't even have a retirement account. I'm barely able to pay for my food, and I can't even afford health insurance. Well, go to the beach and think about it. I can't afford to go to the beach, sir. I'm going to be evicted and lose everything. Okay, well then don't go to your beach house. Go to your house in Aspen. I don't have a house at all, sir. Like, it's so out of touch. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. But the point is, like, yes, this is an ex-president of Sony. So it's not a current president. It's not like this is what the current guy's saying. But the point is, this guy was at one time in that position of power. And that's the type of person that is in that position even today. So you shouldn't be surprised when they're out of touch with this stuff. Because they look at it and they're like, well, yeah, it's the vertical stands sold separately, but just buy it separately. It costs like nothing. It's like $10 or whatever they're going to sell it for. I don't know what they're going to sell it for. And everybody's like, well, Well, no, the point is like it should be included. It does add up when you factor all this stuff in. But it's the same thing with like all of these big companies that are releasing like half-assed buggy broken games for $70, because for them $70 is nothing. They're like, yeah, no, it's $70. Like I spent that on a box of what's the name of that supermarket in, it's like San Fran or something, where it's like, you know, $70 for a box of strawberries. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of that place? Irwin, is that it? Is that what it's called? Yeah, if you guys haven't seen this, Irwin store. Is this it? Yeah, I think this is it. Like this is one of those like weird niche like hipster stores. Organic strawberries. 1 pound, $7. That's not the one I saw. Oh yeah, like these. $25 for a box of strawberries. Like $25. I saw one video where somebody's like, I'm gonna go into Erewhon and buy just lunch. I'm just gonna get lunch. And they went in there and they tried to get just like a sandwich and a drink, and they ended up spending like $130. Like, how the hell did that even happen? Like, oh, I bought an apple and this apple happened to be $15 or something. But like, that's the level of out of touch that like some people are at. It's funny, Katy Perry is here. Yeah, like Katy Perry, you know, it's like Katy Perry is the type of person shopping here. And that is, yeah, Moon Juice, $45. Unbelievable. So the people that shop here are the ones that are deciding what this stuff should be priced at. And so no wonder. Anyway, with all this stuff, we'll see when it comes out in November. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised they announced it this far in advance. As far as I know, there aren't pre-orders open or anything. I don't know if they're even going to do pre-orders. So there's that. Anyway, end of story. Okay. Katy Perry for Sony's president. She unironically might do a better job. Oh God. A bunch of people sent me this article, by the way. I don't think we're going to talk about it because basically this entire report, they're like, ooh, PlayStation State of Play September 2024 won't feature first-party games, says a report. The report is basically just a guy on X that has had his account temporarily restricted because they detect suspicious activity. And when you go through it, it's basically him just saying in a tweet with 25 likes that it's not going to have any PlayStation Studios titles. Maybe it's true. I don't see any reason to believe that's true. So I just don't think we're gonna talk about it. I mean, if outlets are that desperate for a story, I don't even know what to do. So anyway, let me catch up on all these real quick, okay? And thank you everybody for being out here across both platforms. We have like 3,000 people, which is insane. So thank you guys. Like the stream or don't like the stream. I can't make you. I'm not your dad. Do whatever you want to do. But I'm glad you are here. Thank you. Let's go through these real quick. SBAP, thank you for subbing with Prime. Let's see. Flyskin, thank you for subbing with Prime. TX8, thank you for that. Zod, thank you for subbing with Prime, or subbing at tier 1 rather. Amboz, thank you for subbing 6 months. Ooh, baby, over on Twitch. Thank you for that. Thank you. Over on the YouTube side of things, let me kind of go in chronological order. Robert, thank you for re-upping your membership. Hello, Baby Ghost. Thank you for your membership as well. Mr. Steel Yo Kill, 5 months. Ooh, baby. $700 for a console is crazy, and no disc drive this gen had been disappointing already. Dude, we just need, if they reveal like a couple good games, people are going to lose their minds. That's all they really need. That's all they really need. They just need like 1 or 2 big games to get people excited. Showcase whatever Naughty Dog's working on, showcase, you know, just something big to get people excited again. But instead they're just doing more of this. And so hopefully, you know, they have a lot of irons in the fire and it's going to pop off soon. But yeah, they just need something to excite people, because this, I don't think, was it. Carl, thank you for 20 months. 20 months, OMG, hope you're well. Also, I platinumed Astrobot the other day. It was so awesome. Such a fun game, worth every penny. Not sponsored, I promise. Yeah, I mean, I'm loving it too. It is fantastic. We were going to do a video on it, but I recorded it in 2 chunks. And the first chunk was like 45 minutes long. The second was like 15 minutes long. And the first chunk was corrupted somehow. So I didn't end up we didn't end up actually putting the video out because we couldn't really refilm it. Which was sad, but I've been playing it. I love it. Samaya, thank you for that super chat. Considering that PlayStation games are coming to PC eventually, I don't think I'll buy another PlayStation again. I think they just need to be clear about timelines. If they're like, hey, within 6 months it'll show up, or a year it'll show up, then I think people can make better decisions. But they're keeping it very vague for now. Eric, thank you for that. I wonder if the tune of this being too expensive will still be around when GTA 6 comes around. I remember people said this for Hogwarts Legacy, and a lot of people bought the normal PS5 just for that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there's going to be a lot of casual gamers that come around the time of like GTA 6 for this. And that's why like they're going to offer the PS5 and the PS5 Pro as an option. I think they probably sell a lot more PS5s than PS5 Pros at the end of the day for GTA 6, but it also depends on the marketing deals. If they actually do have an exclusive marketing deal, as some people have suggested, it could make a difference. Because what they could do is on every GTA 6 trailer that comes out, they could put on the PlayStation 6 or PlayStation 5 Pro logo rather, and that could actually help move units. But yeah, this isn't as exciting as I was hoping it would be. You know, it's like, ooh, big mid-gen update. And instead of being like, okay, I need one, we're all kind of like, But at the end of the day, it's because there's just not enough new games. I think that's the big thing. There's just not anything to really justify it. Jared Phillips, thank you for that. 5. It's like Sony took a class on how to lose money this year. WTF is with these companies. I think they're all desperate, and they've been trying desperately to find quick ways to milk their audiences and their customers for cash, and they haven't worked, so they've lost ridiculous amounts of money, and now they're just kind of floundering because the executives are upset, and they're like, hey, increase margins because you lost just so much money. And they're like, okay, and they're doing stuff like this that only upsets their customers more, and so they're just flip-flopping around. But I'll tell you right now, it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is all Concord's fault? Yeah, for real. At the end of the day, it's all Concord's fault. Concord died for this? Oh, God. Minzy, thank you for that. Bro, 800 euros for the PS5. Just buy a PC. I wish PCs of this power were 800 bucks, but if you can, or 800 euros. But if you can build one, or if you know somebody that can help you build one, absolutely do that. You'll get a lot more games, a lot more flexibility getting a PC. Charlie Masters, thank you for the 2. Hey, Luke, have you played Astrobot GOTY Contender? Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's very good. Probably does get a nod. I don't know if they'll let it win just because it's smaller, but I think it gets nominated. Rango, thank you for that. PS5 Pro over PC. Why at this point? For a 1K, you can get a PC that can run anything for the next 5 years at 60 FPS. I think you got to be more specific. 5 years at 4K at 60, probably on low to medium. I think it also depends. If you're talking about a console player that doesn't have a PC, you got to factor in like buying a monitor, mouse and keyboard, like all the other peripherals. And when you factor all that in, I'm not sure you get to that powerful of a computer. So I don't know. I remember years ago, Linus did some videos on their channel where he experimented with it and like they tried to build it. Does anybody know those videos. Somebody in chat, look up on YouTube, see if you can find a video, just paste the title of one. Because I'm sure Linus probably has done it recently, right? That could be a good one to react to, where he like tried to make a PS5 comparable PC, but you know, at a similar price point. That could be interesting to see. Kappa, thank you for 15 months. Hey, Luke, hope you're doing well. With the PS5 Pro being $700, do you think the PlayStation 6 is going to hit $800, $900? Have a good Tuesday. I mean, the PS5 or PS6 is still probably 4 years away because they're framing this as a mid-gen refresh. And if it truly is mid-gen, it would be middle of the gen, which means 4 years out, which is still crazy to think that we have this much time left. But if that's the case, I think that they probably just try to re-anchor around like $600-$700. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. When did the PS4 Pro come out? Was it 2016 or 2018? Because I have a God of War one from God of War 2018. So it was before that. PS4 Pro. We just looked at it the other day. PS4. Yeah, 16. PS4 Pro. Hardware. Where's the Pro? Just give me the Pro. Where's the Pro? PlayStation 4 Pro. Yeah. September 7th, 2016. It's almost 8 years ago to the day. Yeah, that at least that one had a higher CPU clock. But anyway. Yeah, and that was in the middle of the gen. They released that 2016, so like 3 years after the launch of the PS4, and then 4 years after that, the next gen started. So time's out about right. Let's see. But yeah, Kappa, I think they probably re-anchor at like a $600 to $700 price point. So I wouldn't be surprised if the PlayStation 6 is like $599 or something like that. Let's see. Copeside Phil, thank you for the 2. No disk drive either. Going to pay $1K for it. Yeah, disk drive is like 80. Some people are saying the vertical stand is going to be anywhere from 10 to $30, which is insane. I mean, for a lot of people, they're going to spend close to $1,000 for this thing if they really want it, which is crazy. And then Copeside Phil, thank you for another 2. That's most definitely what's up.
That's most definitely what's up.
Thank you for that. PlayStation 6 will launch without a controller, only a console. Yeah, they'll do the Apple thing where they're like, well, we didn't include the cables for it because we wanted to go green. It's like, it seems like you're just penny pinching and trying to save money to make more money. And they're like, no, it's because of going green. That's the whole thing. Yeah, that's the get out of jail free card for big corporations nowadays. Whenever they want to like cut corners by not including charging bricks or by making the boxes smaller and thus more prone to damage, stuff like that, they're like, well, it's because of going green. And it's like, you sure about that? Sure about that? Max Donnie, thank you for the 2. I know where they can shove their $800 €800 price tag. Yeah. Again, what's crazy is it's still going to sell out. Let's be honest. Meowtro, thank you for the 2. Sony, the new Apple. Yeah, I think that sentiment is accurate. I called this one out earlier when you posted it. I think there absolutely is a sense that Sony is now trying to just do the Apple thing of minimal upgrades, but sell it based on the value of the brand and the power of the brand. And also the weird social status stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen some of these like hardcore Sony pony type guys, but they will literally like buy a PS5 and they'll keep the box in the background of their little studio setup for years. As if you're supposed to be like impressed that you bought a console that tens of millions of dollars or tens of millions of people rather own already. Like it was really, really weird. And there's a lot of people that do it, you know, and every time there's new hardware, they'll go and buy it and they'll do this and do that. You know, it's really, really stupid in my opinion. You know, it's like nobody's Nobody's that impressed, dude. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you guys forgot about this? Yeah, this is Sony energy right now. Thank you, Swordfish Master, for this one. In case you guys haven't seen that. Yeah. Wait. The biggest thing I learned from this is that Apple wheels now cost $869. Oh, wait, that's Canada pricing. False alarm. You can get them for just $700. Yeah. If you bought the Mac Pro, if you wanted to put wheels on the bottom of the case, they sold them for $700. This is the new PlayStation energy, for sure. For sure. For sure. Chief Adam Gaming, thank you for the 10. PS5 Pro being $700 dues without a disc drive is ridiculous. If you get the disc drive separately with tax, you're looking at closer to $900. Absolutely not worth the upgrade. And that's the thing. Like, I think, again, there is a market for premium consoles. I do think there are lots of people out there who have money to burn and would like the console experience with much higher fidelity and power, blah, blah, blah. But the power has to actually be there to justify the price point. Like, I do think if there were a PlayStation 5 that had the power of a 4090 in it and you could crank stuff at that level, natively rendering at like 4K out the ass, like, I do think there are many people who would buy that ultra crazy PlayStation 5 Ultra or whatever. I do think there are people that would buy that. But the point is, it would need to be that powerful to justify the price. This feels like a minimal upgrade, and then they're charging what, 20%, 30% more than the base version, and they're also taking things away like the disc drive. So when you factor that in, they're charging like 50% more. It's insane. Like, it's just a bad value. And thank you for that super chat. That's very generous. Rango, thank you for the 2. Why would you not pin the poll? I did pin the poll. I forgot to at first. I am a terrible YouTuber. I'm bad at my job. Dragon Blood Eye, thank you for the, I don't know what CHF is, but thank you for that super chat. The stripes remind me of the Adidas stuff. Yeah, I personally don't really like the look. It just, I don't know. I just don't personally like it. Because I think it'll look stupid laying on its side. I like the vertical look, but I mean, to also have to buy a vertical stand is a little silly. Card Monbra, thank you for that. Super chat as well, 10, very generous. What's also frustrating is that there hasn't even been that many games that have really pushed even the PS5 or base PS5 to its limits, especially lack of DualSense utility. Yeah, it feels like most games nowadays, they could run way better. It's just a lack of optimization. And so it does feel like we're not even fully taking advantage of the hardware because devs aren't given time to optimize and polish. So what we do get is just kind of like a kind of lackluster offering that doesn't take advantage of the hardware you spent $500 4 years ago. And I'm sure this is going to be a similar thing where now reviewers are going to have to test it on PS5 Pro and see how it runs there versus on the base PS5. And who knows if it runs better. Like, I don't know how scalable it's going to be, but it's going to be interesting. Edgar Vasquez, thank you for the 10 as well. Something has to give. PC market has lost their minds with PC component prices, and it seems like consoles are starting to sniff the money signs. I'm a PC enthusiast, and I'm sick of getting gouged. I mean, let's all just take a moment as PC gamers, though, to appreciate that we are not in the middle of the crypto boom again. You remember how insane graphics cards were during the crypto boom? When every graphics card was being scalped because all these like Bitcoin bros were trying to buy it up to mine boob coin and stuff. Like, now it's AI, true, but AI stuff at least needs like ultra specialized hardware, and those chips are like $50,000. Like, those chips are extremely expensive, and so consumers are not getting their hands on that. Whereas back during the crypto boom, any graphics card you wanted was being scalped. It was crazy. So let's just appreciate that we're not dealing with that, because that was madness. Edgar, also, again, thank you for the 10. That's very, very generous. Let's see. Synthetics, thank you for the 10 as well. I have the base PS5, and I'm happy to use it when I don't want to game at my desk. My PC has a 4070, and for the price of the PS5 Pro, I think I'm just going to shop for a better GPU. I mean, I think that's totally fair. And like other people have mentioned, most of these games that you're seeing on screen are either already on PC or are coming to PC soon. So if you already have a PC and you could just spend this $700 on upgrading your PC, like, just do that. Like, honestly, if you have like straight up, if you have like a $600-700 GPU now, sell it used on the secondhand market and then go and upgrade to like a 4090 or a 4080 or something. Go crazy. Why not? Like, just do it. You'll get way more from it. Way more out of it. So I totally agree. Jaeger, thank you for the 5. The Sony downfall needs to be studied. It seems like just yesterday they were winning with amazing games and prices. Jesus, what happened? What happened is they put a new guy in charge who thought that he could make a couple of basic moves and start printing money. He's like, and at the outset, rewind the clocks to like 2019. Sony's approach was, okay, we're going to buy Bungie and we're going to have not just Destiny 2, which I'm sure will always print money, but we'll also have their new game Marathon that's coming and another IP they're working on. Ooh, baby. And we're going to like go and buy all these other studios like Haven. They're doing a new a super exciting game called Fair Game $. That's going to probably pop off. So we're going to do that. That game is going to slay, Queen. And then we also are going to go buy another studio called Firewalk. They're working on a new 5v5 hero shooter that's going to also slay, Queen. And we're going to go in there, buy up all these studios, and we're going to release these live service games, and they're going to be crazy good and amazing, and we're going to love them, and it's going to be stunning, brave, and beautiful every single way, every step of the way. And then they ended up just hemorrhaging money. They did have one success with Helldivers 2 that kind of emboldened them a bit, but clearly it didn't didn't really make that big of a difference in their understanding of what's successful and what's not. So Jim Ryan's whole pitch was to make this push into live service stuff, and it has been, by every metric I can gauge, an unmitigated disaster. They have wasted billions of dollars on this pursuit, and they have one pretty good success in Helldivers to show for it. And like no major single player stuff that's been announced that people are like super pumped for. Like there's just nothing. And they're working on stuff, but still. No more Slay, please stop. Oh god. Almost caught up on super chats, everybody, and then I'll get back to the regular chat. We got pretty backed up talking about all this. Thank you for the extremely generous chats, everybody. Very, very nice of you. Megalodon Jaws, thank you also for resubbing with Prime. 2 months. Ooh baby, loving Space Marine 2. Got my the screens, I feel like such an old man. Got my Carcharodon skins unlocked and my Ultramarine unlocked. Time to grind. Grind it up, my friend. I definitely mispronounced that. Thank you for that. That's very nice of you to resub. Thank you, my friend. And then Kiem 9000 also, thank you for resubbing or subbing with Prime. Thank you for that. And then almost there, guys. You guys are troopers. Thank you. Let's see, where was I? Just read that one. Copeside Phil, thank you for the 2 again. The gaming industry is a disaster zone right now. I'm hoping next year just is like the palate cleanser we need. That's my hope. Maybe it starts with like Veilguard and then Indiana Jones, and then next year we just start getting some really, really solid games. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and a bunch of games that are just like, that's my hope. That's my hope. But we'll see. Because right now, this year especially, it's just been really kind of a bummer, honestly. Just a wee bit of a bummer. Nolan, thank you for the 5. Does the new Xbox Series X digital version have any performance difference? Not that I know of. I think it's pretty much just storage is the difference, but it's the same same chip. That's my understanding. Kenneth Fox, thank you for the 5. 800 euros for me over here is definitely not a day one for me. I can see the improvements, but for that price, it's not worth it. I think that's most people's impression. Is there an improvement? Yes. Does it run these games better? Yes. Is it $700 better? Probably not. Saturn, thank you for the 5 as well. Hey, Luke, this is off topic, but is there any courses or YouTube channels you would recommend for financial help? I've talked to Caleb Hammer, I think once on X or Twitter, and I've watched his stuff a lot. He does the financial audit stuff. It's entertaining. The videos are very entertaining, and they also give you the basics of finance stuff. Beyond that, read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Do that. If you really want a deep dive, read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, and it will change your life. It's a heavy read. I mean, it's a lot, but if you can get through that, no joke, your life will be changed. Yeah, or like Jamie says, watch DSP and do the opposite of everything he does. That's a safe bet. To be financially intelligent, just do the opposite. Let's see. Rango, thank you for that. PlayStation 6, no power, HDMI cord, controller, stand, or box. Yeah, I would not be surprised if they pull something like no HDMI cord. I think that's a really safe bet, actually, that they don't include that. Even though they pay basically nothing for those cables when you factor in the scale of what they're doing, making 100 million of these things. But yeah, I would not be surprised if they cut like the HDMI cord, unironically. Let's see. S. Janagathan, thank you for the super chat. Hi, bro, big fan. Your videos are my best mate, or are my best mate. I have no best friend or a loved one. Thanks for doing your thing. I always pray for you, Nikki, your sister, and the babies. Lots of love, guys, hugs, and kisses. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Much love to you too, my friend. Much love. Yeah, keep your chin up. Thank you, my friend. Glad to have you here. 04 Alphatron, thank you for the super chat as well. I will say you are getting 2 terabytes SSD. A regular PS5 is about $550 after tax. 2 terabytes is about $180, $200 plus tax. So I don't know. You don't have to upgrade, but I think people are going to start comparing. I mean, maybe just in terms of, well, I guess, this is what we have to do though, Alphatron, because you're not actually getting a 2 terabyte upgrade. You're getting a 1 terabyte upgrade. So the base PS5, isn't it sold nowadays with a terabyte, or is it still with 500? I thought the base PS5 was sold with a terabyte. Is it 1 terabyte? So if it's 1 terabyte, you actually have to look at the 1 terabyte SSD. What are the comparable? Let's see. This Western Digital black one. Yeah, so this one costs $80. So this would be a 1 terabyte upgrade to get you to 2 terabytes. So this is basically the comparable upgrade. So if you're just taking the PS5, the base PS5, and you'd have to do the slim. So console, buy now. What's this look like? So 500 at 1 terabyte, add the 80, it's like 580. But this is with the disc. Where's the discless one? That's like 450, right? Oh, no way. The vertical stand is $30. I thought you guys were joking. It's $30. Jesus Christ. But okay, so the comparable version would be the Slim Digital. So, because there's no disk drive on the Pro, so it would actually be $530 once you add the terabyte into it. So if you're going to compare it, it's $530 versus $700. So $170 upgrade effectively. Yeah, Luke, time for you to start a side hustle with that 3D printer PS5 stands. Yeah, dude. Knowing the modern Sony, they'd probably send cease and desists and sue the crap out of me. Let's be perfectly honest. Yeah. Brother Lady, thank you for 12 months. Currently playing the Stalker games and forgot how good they are. Do you think Stalker 2 will come to PS5? Probably. There doesn't seem to be much exclusivity coming around nowadays. It seems like that is probably a thing of the past, at least timed exclusivity. Reckless, thank you for the 5. Do the disk drives come in white only? What if you want to put different color plates on your console? There'll be some monstrosities out there. Yeah, I mean, you could probably paint it. My understanding is the plastic shell can come off and you can probably replace it off of Etsy or something, but I don't think they sell it with a different color. Let's see. Nissan 86, thank you for the 5. PSA, don't trade in your PS5 consoles. It might be the last disk drive Sony makes. Yeah, I mean, the odds of them doing a PlayStation 6 with a disc drive, I think, are pretty low, honestly. Aiden Euros, thank you for the 5. Did you see that Concord didn't even make enough money to pay the electric bill in their office for a single year? I did not see that. That's funny. Hold on. Where is that story? Do you know who did that story? Concord. Maybe if I just do Concord electric bill, Concord game electric bill. No, I don't see it. If there's an article or something somebody did on that, that could make a really funny segment, I think. It was in Penguin Z0's video. Oh, okay. Asmongold said it. I mean, I'm sure their electric bills are crazy when you factor in like the server farms and stuff. Yeah, guys, I'm sure it goes without saying, but if you come into chat and you start asking for money and like iPhones, you're gonna get a band. I can't believe I have to say that, but yeah. Let's see. Like, there's no way that works, right? There's no way that's ever worked for anybody. That's funny. Let's see. Samaya, also, thank you for this one. Ubisoft needs to rename themselves to Ubisoft AI to get that stock price up. What's sad is it would probably work. It'd probably work. Okay. Virtual panhandling? Yeah, I guess. Charlie did some math based on the average office space needed for that number of employees they had. Well, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I don't think it covered their expenses for probably, because they sold what, estimated 25,000 copies. So 25,000 copies times $40 minus, I think 15,000 of those were on Steam. So 15,000 copies. They only, like, Steam took 30%, so it's effectively only 10,000 of those copies plus another 10,000, so effectively only 20,500 times, even if we are generous and we say that half of the people that bought it bought the $60 version, which I think is, again, generous. So we say the average purchase price was $50. They might take in $1 million. That studio costs more than $1 million to run over a year. I think it costs more than $1 million to run over 6 months. So I think without a doubt, I mean, it's a cataclysmic failure. And then G Mendez, thank you for the 5 months. Finally trying Fallout 4, buggy as hell, goofy dialogue, but at least I get to load in and out of buildings. Thanks for the top tier content. Thank you, my friend. And yeah, let me know what you think of it. If you try to play it like an RPG, you're going to have a bad time. But if you loosen up and you just play it like an adventure game, it's not bad, actually. Cat Plant, thank you also for subbing with Prime. That's fantastic. Appreciate the gosh darn heck out of you. And let me go here and double check our last spot. We're good. Okay. We are fully caught up. Thank you, guys. That was amazing. I don't know. Maybe it's what I'm wearing. You guys are very generous. We're good to talk about this next segment. We're caught up. How's the poll now? Where did I put it? Let's check in on the poll. Yeah, about where you would expect. Yeah, about 95% of people are saying that it is not worth the price. Wow. So either way, it seems like Sony has some convincing to do, some further convincing to do, because people are not buying it. Maybe even literally. Yeah, lack of CPU upgrade holds the games with subpar FPS. Well, that's the biggest thing, Rover buddies. Like they're like, oh, there's 3 pillars of this upgrade. It's the GPU, it's the better ray tracing, and then it's the AI upscaler. Ray tracing and the GPU are basically the same thing. So 2 of the 3 pillars of the upgrade are identical. They're the same thing, which shows you just how little is actually changed, which is frustrating. Because like you said, also no CPU upgrade. So CPU bottlenecked games, there's no change there. They're still going to be bottlenecked. Okay, let's do this. New segment. I'm sure you guys have heard of this, Midnight Society. This is the company that was founded with the help of Dr. Disrespect, the one and only doctor. And let's just say he had some drama this summer. A little bit of drama, just a little bit of drama going on, to say the very least. I do want to be very clear. I feel bad for the Midnight Society guys. Okay, these guys did nothing wrong other than, I guess, working with a guy that they didn't know super well, or that, you know, he kept this hidden from his friends and everybody else. So, you know, you don't know what you don't know, and so they didn't make this mistake. But basically, the only thing that was keeping this game going in development and that was justifying its existence is that, oh, it's Dr. Disrespect's game. It's the game he's working on, right? And he went deep into the NFT thing, which immediately for me turned me off to the idea, because Doc was like, well, just imagine if you're playing a match of this extraction shooter and you get a super, super rare NFT skin for your gun. And this NFT is worth $100,000. And then you're streaming it, it's in a tournament or something, and you're trying to extract with that skin. And if you get out, you basically just made $100,000. He's like, that will make streaming this game way more exciting. That will make coverage and tournaments of this game amazingly exciting. It's going to be phenomenal. Kind of missing out on the core, like the main issue, which is that in order for something to be worth $100,000, somebody has to be willing to pay for it with $100,000. And that was one thing that was never mentioned with NFTs, was like, everybody would just say, this will now be worth more. It's like, okay, but to who? Who is going to buy it? Like, are there crypto bros that are going to be buying it with Bitcoin? Okay, well, maybe that can do it, but are they really going to do it? Immediately, crypto bros backed out of the NFT thing because they're like, no, I'm not convinced. A lot of them wasted a lot of money on it, you know, with the Bored Ape stuff. And for a while there, NFTs were everywhere. Every company was trying to chase it because it seemed like, oh, we don't want to miss out on the next Bitcoin. Let's get in early. And it was a cringe fest across the board. So when they announced that they were pursuing NFT stuff for this game, a lot of people mentally checked out. Even Doc's own audience was like, you sure? You sure about that? Like this seems odd. And so basically what this article is that Midnight Society has laid off 50% of their dev team following the Dr. Disrespect drama. I saw somebody in the comment section. Yeah, he got in a little bit of drama, little as in a minor bit of drama. Oh God. Everything sucks. Okay. It has been revealed that Midnight Society, the studio working on Dead Drop, a vertical extraction shooter, has been forced to lay off roughly 50% of the development team. Midnight Society rocketed into prolific position almost 3 years ago when it was revealed that Guy, Dr. Disrespect Beam, was founding member of the studio. In the years that followed, the controversial creator helped build Midnight Society's brand and pull players into the world of Dead Drop, which many doubted was legit because it lent whatever on NFTs as a foundation. Following the recent allegations leveled against Dr. Disrespect, the studio has been forced to lay off 50% of its dev team. They parted ways with him when this news first broke. They separated from him and were like, hey, we're not going to like stay partners. You're kind of, you present a minor problem for our company. So they just were like, hey, stay away. In a message pulled from Midnight Society's Discord server, Robert 402 Bowling, one of the studio's founders, explained, as most of you know, we have faced multiple unexpected challenges in recent months. To adapt to these changes and secure the future of Midnight Society, Dead Drop, and our commitment to providing innovative gaming experiences, we've made the tough decision to streamline our operations, which includes a significant workforce reduction. He went on to stress, that Dead Drop is still set to be released in 2025, and that the team will spend time compiling revised plans and a fresh roadmap. However, the vast majority of the comments posted in response to this message stood in solidarity with Dr. Disrespect, the disgraced streamer who recently admitted to inappropriately messaging a minor on Twitch in 2017. One user wrote, hopefully the entire company shuts down fully, jumping to conclusions on Doc. Another user called out Cody Connors, the former Twitch employee who kickstarted all this drama in June by posting publicly to Dr. Disrespect's permanent Twitch ban. Nice job, Ivoli. A bunch of people are no longer able to provide for their children because you were so desperate to get involved in something that you were never involved in to begin with. Worst 15 minutes of fame of all time. When the revelations about Disrespect, Dr. Disrespect were aired, it was claimed that he was an influencer for Midnight Society and nothing more. The concern now is that his profile as an influencer was so impactful that Dead Drop will fail miserably, as the vast majority of people getting involved were only doing so because of Dr. Disrespect. And that's my impression, is that the only people I ever heard bring up Dead Drop were fans of Doc, or it was people talking about the game paired with Doc. It was always like, Dead Drop, Dr. Disrespect's game, is set to release in 2020. Like, that was the headline of every story related to the game. It always had him attached. And now that he is basically uranium for your brand, a lot of people are just like, okay, well, there's nothing going for it now. So it seems to be in a very tough spot. And honestly, like, as a game, it didn't seem that compelling to me. I've seen the clips of people trying it. It looks quite generic to me. I've never played it myself, to be perfectly fair, but I've not ever seen anything that made me go, ooh, I want to play that. And then seeing them lean so heavily into NFTs, it's like already extremely out of touch and out of date. And it just, I don't see what the hook is that's supposed to get you exciting. So yeah, I think you guys might be right. Dead Drop may actually just drop dead when it drops when it launches. So, and I think they know that too at this point. I think they know that too. So it's too bad they didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but other than make an NFT game, but you know, that's just how it works. If people aren't interested in your game, they're just not interested. And it's better to get out of it before you're in too deep. It seems like they're pretty deep, but I guess we'll see how they pull this off. Yeah. Doc still has a lot of audience. Don't know who they are though. Yeah, I mean, there are big streamers and YouTubers and influencers on Rumble and Kick and whatever who have done like objectively horrible things and are like, they still have careers. So I think a lot of these guys, they only get canceled if they cancel themselves. But a lot of these guys, they'll just keep doing their thing, and eventually the internet will just kind of forget. And occasionally people will pull up and mention it. They'll be like, hey, aren't you the guy that ran over that person in their car? Or aren't you the guy that you know, like accidentally masturbated on camera on stream? Like, aren't you the guy? Like, people will mention it occasionally, but for the most part, people will just move on and forget about it. So I fully expect that Doc is probably just going to keep doing his thing, and he's probably going to be just fine after a while. Which is crazy, but I mean, that's just how this tends to work. Like, if you have a big enough and committed enough fan base, you can kind of do anything and people will just Like, oh no, the people that don't like you will leave, but your diehard fans will stay with you, and then eventually people will forget, and it's just, it's how it works. Yeah. Then eventually you run for president, and you know. Yeah, wink, wink, Mr. Beast. Yeah, it's literally like, even now, do you see anybody really talking about the Mr. Beast stuff anymore? Not really. Some people maybe, but a lot of people just kind of drift off. Yeah. EDP drifted off. EDP's thing though is that like he was actually like kicked from every platform. Like as far as I understand it, he's not able to like make a YouTube channel. He's not able to like actually do anything. And EDP did not have FU money. Doc has FU money. And that's probably the bigger difference. Is like Doc can afford to hire lawyers and sue YouTube to remonetize him, and like he can do that stuff and he'll just do his own thing. But if you don't have FU money, you can't really fight it, so you're just stuck. But if you have enough money, you can do almost anything and continue along your way. Like OJ Simpson basically killed people. Like we're pretty damn sure he killed 2 people, and he was like still writing. Granted, there was civil suits involved, but he was still like going on golf tours with other celebrities in Los Angeles. He was still like pretty active on social media towards the end of his life. Like, and he straight up killed people. You know, granted, he did not have a very successful career after all of that happened, let's just say. But that was also probably because he spent a lot of time in prison. But a lot of these guys won't go away. They'll just hang around if they have the money, you know. Yeah, dude literally wrote a book, If I Did It. Yeah, but the if was like really, really small. Where's the cover of that book? Hold on. Yeah, you're telling me the guy that wrote this book, you're telling me that guy that wrote this book didn't do it? The whole premise of this book, just in case you're not familiar, OJ wrote it because he wanted to write confessions of the killer from the killer's perspective, but he was not saying he did it. And if you look really close, like in the eye, there's an if. So it's if I did it. But it's basically just a book confession. And when this was first released, he was trying to like actually make money on it. And then the Goldman family sued him and they took over basically the money. And so they pocket it. But yeah, it's insane. The whole OJ Simpson thing is insane. One of the most crazy stories of the last like decade. It's or few decades rather. Yeah, but totally not the killer though. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about this now. Yeah. Why are we talking about OJ again? I don't know. It just happened, dude. Rooster Jackson, thank you also for the $700 or £700 is $950 US. UK getting screwed. Yeah, there's some stuff with like the taxes, VAT taxes and stuff that gets tied in. But yeah, without a doubt, they're getting the short end of the stick. No doubt there. And then Kesterian, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you for subbing with Prime as well. Thank you. Let's talk about this. News segment. Okay. Going through the new reported Bungie marathon leaks by Paul Tassi from a couple days ago. We've done some looking at marathon because it initially was supposed to be like just a straight up extraction shooter. It was going to be pretty hardcore. It seemed interesting enough. But over the last few years, it's gotten a new creative or a new game director. After one of the last guys, he left we found out later he left and there was like allegations of misconduct and stuff, and he was recently fired just like a week or two ago. So there's drama certainly with regards to Marathon, but if we look at just the game, one of the transitions it's made is that they basically hired a new guy who is the former head of Valorant, and he came in, and last we heard he had transitioned Marathon into a hero-based extraction shooter because it's what he was familiar with after working on Valorant. And a lot of people were not aware of that. So when the news broke, everybody's like, what? You're kidding me. They're doing another hero-based game? But apparently that's what was reported. But there are new leaks. There's new information that they are reporting on. Let's see what it is. Since Bungie has refused to talk about Marathon in any meaningful capacity for ages now, almost all information about the game has come out through reporting or leaks, including a past IGN story which said the game had switched to quote-unquote hero characters under Valorant director Joe Ziegler, and that freaked a lot of people out. Now I've been pointed repeatedly to a long list of leaks about Marathon from leaker Oopsie Leaks, or Oops Leaks. That's funny. I normally may not have bothered, but after reading through them, I have heard at least some of these broad strokes, so I am prone to lend credence to at least some of these points, but I'm not ready to get into specifics, so here are the highlights. Ziegler replaced Chris Barrett over a year ago. We know this is true, though the recent Barrett firing story, I'm not sure many people realize the timeline of that. The content creators that have been doing monthly playtests are not from hero shooters like Overwatch or Valorant, but Tarkov and Hunt Showdown instead. Again, leaning away from the hero concept being the main thing. We've heard about Tarkov players testing before, even if the game is not supposed to be a Tarkov clone or anything like that. Reportedly, the heroes translate into Forerunner presets that can be customized within those presets, each with different playstyles, which is compared to something like the finals. Okay. Past that, rather than being set hero shooter type weapons, you can indeed heavily customize your weaponry. So this directly answers some of the chief concerns of hearing that they're going heroes. It's like, no, apparently there is still heavy customization. The class idea, it's speculated, is meant to try to solve the monetization as a free-to-play game. We don't know for sure that it's free-to-play, but after Concord's disaster, it seems likely. The idea is that you can visually customize class characters without putting something in like pay-to-win microtransactions. This does sort of align with past reporting that figuring out monetization was a concern for the game. How do we make that money? There are not a million different types of loot to extract, and it's much more streamlined than that. More Hunt than Tarkov. There are large maps that are not procedurally generated, though there was a test about changing things each time within an established map. Okay. There's a seasonal progression similar to Destiny 2's artifact system for bonuses. It's described as the main project at Bungie right now, possibly even above Destiny 2 itself. I'm not sure we know that Marathon has more people working on it than Destiny right now, and at least at the moment, I don't believe that's true. The report indicates that the game is not going to be canceled in the wake of Sony's live service issues, and that is absolutely true. Whether it hits 2025 or hits 2025 is another matter entirely. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're going to can this. This is like the one thing that Bungie has going with a lot of potential. So it doesn't seem like they're going to, toss it, which makes sense. I mean, that's not really a surprise to me. What is interesting to me is that this, again, seems like they're specifically targeting Tarkov players and Hunt Showdown players, which I think there's potentially a crack in the armor there. I mean, Tarkov players are a different breed. It is hyper specialized, and the people that play Tarkov really know that game, and they know like every bit of the hardcore simulation systems in that game. I'm not sure if they come over to a game like this unless, because like a lot of the guys I know that play Tarkov are like gun nuts. They love how grounded and realistic it is. I'm not sure if they come over to something like this if it's more sci-fi, right? Hunt Showdown players, maybe they are more prone to come over here, or maybe they're just trying to go for all new players and it's a totally new game that excites a new wave of people into this type of game. I'm not really sure, but at the very least, it's kind of interesting. Bungie is supposed to start officially talking about it soon, though the report says a controlled leak may start to happen if not. Generally speaking, the report seems quite positive about the direction of the game and at times seems actually angry at its detractors. I don't believe this is someone on the Marathon team, as this is an already established leak account that talks about a wide variety of games, though an insider or playtester may have broken down these details for them. I think the main takeaway here would be the idea that this is not going to employ quote-unquote real heroes, in the sense that it's a fully set character with no gameplay customization at all, which I think is what most people are concerned about, especially given the connection to Valorant through its director. A class-type system retaining at least some level of customization, especially in weapons, seems like a good middle ground between fully custom characters and heroes, though I do not fully understand how this would be monetized effectively despite that. It is interesting that they're apparently still struggling to figure out how they're going to make the money on this. Because it might have been that they were like, okay, well, we can kind of be less aggressive on the monetization because we'll charge $70 for it at launch. But now after Concord, I know a lot of people are like, I don't think the price had a lot to do with it. I think knowledge of the price had a lot to do with Concord's failure. I think a lot of people were not that interested in experimenting with the game even when it was free, just because even if they liked it, they would then have to convince all of their friends to try it and like it and spend $40 on it. And that's just another hurdle to get over when you could just keep playing the game you're familiar with. This at least seems to be more of an individual, like it seems to be more unique, which I think will help it. But I mean, if they try to sell this for $70, I don't know how well that works. Maybe for $40, but even then, like, I don't know. Well, in chat, do you guys think that they could get away with like selling this for 40, 50, 60, $70? Like, even if it's pretty good, I think Concord as a video game was pretty good. And I don't think it was bad in terms of the mechanics. The shooting mechanics were tight, movement was tight, and all that. Offerings were a little sparse and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't think it was like a bad game mechanically. But I don't think you could sell excuse me. I don't think you can sell a decent game for $70 or for $40. I think you need a very, very good live service game to sell at that point. You can sell a decent single player game for $40, but I don't think you can sell a decent live service game for $40. They pay $100 a year for Destiny 2's DLC. Yeah, but they're already in that group. You know, they're already hooked and committed to that game. And it's sort of like the sunken cost fallacy. They've already spent so much money on the game that they're like, well, well, you know, I've already spent so much money. I guess I'll spend a little bit more. I think that's how a lot of people approach it. This doesn't cater to PlayStation players, but I mean, maybe that's the goal. This almost certainly launches day and date with PC, right? So I think they're going to try to appeal to those people. It might even launch on Xbox too. I mean, they might bring it to everything. That's very, very possible. So I don't know. I mean, I wish them the best. I hope that they pull it off, because we don't need more flops. We want more good games, without a doubt. But it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, because they're going to start to reveal it soon, because allegedly it comes out next year, and they need it to be a hit. I mean, they really do. Sony spent $3 billion on the game effectively. Like, Destiny 2 is not making them money actively. It's not paying for itself, apparently, according to the reports. So how else are they going to justify the purchase? Like, they need Marathon to pop off. It's probably like the single highest stakes game that PlayStation has in the works right now. You know, if Naughty Dog has an oopsie release, whatever, it's like, okay, well, but they still are behind The Last of Us, which has an amazingly successful HBO show. Like, they'll be fine. But they need Marathon to go well. So we'll see. We'll see. One we'll also see. I just saw this one pop up in my feed, and I thought it actually looked surprisingly fun. I thought I'd share it with you. It's actually published by Konami, so I'm a little like hesitant. But I mean, look at this.
Polka dot dresses, and the year is 1959, a time of rock and roll, polka dot dresses, and the ever-looming dread of nuclear annihilation. Before you is Winston Green.
So, a couple of years back, all roads led me to St. Monique. That's where everything kicked off.
It's a game where basically you're completing deliveries in like a physics-based destructible environment world. And so it mixes like a bunch of smaller niches together. And it just looks like one of those fun junk food games, you know? Oops. Like I could actually see kind of turning my brain off and grinding through something like this.
Hey, stop that! Device activated. Please avoid impact.
Carrying a bomb.
Whoa, what the?
It's funny. Cause I don't know about you guys, I love me some destructible environments. I love me some destructible environments. I love it. So yeah, the game's called Deliver at All Costs. It's all still TBA, TBD. So who knows if when it actually releases, but I thought it looked fun. Oh God, I'm so tired. I'm so eepy. I'm so eepy. Okay, and let's do this one too. I think we should talk about this one too. It's like the medieval horde game in which all the knights play with modern military gear. Yeah, that's what is that, like Knights something, Night Quest or something like that? Like, okay. I filmed a video on the 1 year anniversary of Starfield that we're gonna publish later today. Jacob, are you in chat? Are you in here? Okay. Jake, all that other Jake says is that the ad read is missing the text overlay during the CTA. So I think you just, like, we swapped in the wrong version of the ad read. I think the note is on, the note's on monday.com. But we'll basically need it re-rendered with that overlaid during the CTA. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Maybe. Oh, man. Jacob, move the cup if you're in here with us. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about this one. Let's talk about this. You ready? News segment! Okay. This is a video from IGN. IGN. In which some of their hosts describe a problem they see within the next gen sphere of influence. It's an interesting idea and an interesting topic. The idea that maybe this generation specifically has been held back, or at least it's severely affected by live service stuff. It's an interesting idea. What if all of these frustrations we feel about, like, the PS5 and Xbox Series console, all of that, what if it's all related? What if? I don't know. Let's see what they say.
Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hadfield, and this week I'm joined by Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Thanks for having me.
And Destin Legary from IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Bam. Thanks for having me, Damon.
And
it's Legary. I was making it way more complicated than it needed to be. I thought it was like Destin Legary or something. I was off. That's my bad. I was off. My bad. I will say, Destin pops into streams every once in a while. I know he watches live channel clips and stuff. He's a pal, a bro, dare we say. I haven't ever spoken with Damon or Max, I don't think. But these guys are also OGs. They've been around forever.
Do we have a doozy of a lead topic for you this week? You've probably heard by now, Sony has pulled Concord from sale and is shutting down the servers today, the day this episode goes live on September 6th. That's just 2 weeks after the game was launched. It is one of Sony's big first-party game releases of the year. Not even given a 2-week chance to find its footing. Of course, it did have a very disastrous launch. Steam all-time peak concurrent users sits at 697 players, and I think the day after it was released, so couldn't even crack 700 concurrents on Steam. Analyst tells us it sold at probably 25,000 units. At $40 a pop, that comes out to exactly $1 million. Director Ryan Ellis said, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended.
I would like... I like the side-by-side between like what is actually being said on paper versus the actual sentiment. Let's be honest, working on something allegedly, according to one of the devs, for 8 years. Again, I don't know how on earth you spend 8 years on a game like Concord. That's insane. But allegedly they spent 8 years on this. And just imagine if you did anything for 8 years, day in, day out. And then you finally put it out there and it is... like, without a doubt, there is no question, it is a cataclysmic failure. Like, even the Acolyte can be like, oh, well, some people liked it. We got like 40,000 votes on a petition to renew it for another season. So, like, some people liked it. With this, there's, like, max, maybe like a couple thousand people that were really happy with their purchase. You know, like, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's got to be devastating and really, really heartbreaking. There's no doubt about it. And nobody revels in that. But it doesn't change the fact that we look at the game and have to call a duck a duck. If it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, it's a duck. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If the game's bad, the game's bad. At that Dragon Age preview thing I went to, there were a lot of other YouTubers and streamers. And a lot of them were like, I just think it's like really important to be like focused on positivity. And we need to just... you know, stop critiquing games so much. And I was like, okay, that's how you like actively, for one, deceive your audience so that you can protect like your corporate connection to get invited to stuff. And I think it's built on a false premise that you have to schmooze and you have to be like overly positive for companies to invite you to stuff or give you access. Ubisoft will still invite me to preview events and still like involve me in stuff, despite the fact that I called like Assassin's Creed Valhalla a travesty of open world design. I gave Star Wars Outlaws, if I had to put a number on it, I said it was like a 6. If you play it on the hardest difficulty, it plays closer to like a 7 probably. But on defaults, it's like a 6 out of 10 game. I've not been that kind to them, but they will still invite me to stuff because... like they just are honestly hoping that I do like something. And when I do like something they do, it'll mean way, way more. But I was shocked at how many content creators out there and streamers and stuff were like, well, we just really want to focus on the positivity. And, you know, we don't need to call games out for these shortcomings. I was like, oh, God. Oh, God. This is why we get crap, though. Like, this is why we got garbage. And we get garbage. Because they're going to people for feedback that are saying, I don't want to be critical. I don't want to think because it hurts my brain. And it was pretty interesting because there were a lot of people, of course, to be clear, a lot of people at that event who were very, very, very sweet, extremely intelligent, way smarter than me, and think about things very, very critically and analyze and critique stuff. but I was surprised at the number of people, a lot of them maybe you don't know or wouldn't recognize, and others you might, that intentionally said they play through games and like don't critique stuff, don't think about it, which is just, it was pretty telling. It's like, so off the record, like when we're just talking privately, you're going to tell me that you like intentionally don't critique stuff because you want to just have, you don't want to be like a bummer. I was like, okay, I see what we're doing.
So I don't think there's much point debating why this game failed. I think the reasons are obvious. Hero shooters were exciting in 2016. Concord arrives very late to the party with no popular IP attached to it like Marvel Rivals. Concord is a very generic name. Doesn't tell anything about the game, anyone about the game. People didn't like the characters in this game, and that's kind of important in a hero shooter. The heroes are supposed to be really cool and likable. The curious might have tried it out if it were free to play, but they slapped a price on it. And finally, I think Sony did very little marketing for this game. It was fully revealed in May of this year, but then just sort of was quietly released during Gamescom, the biggest game show of the year, where Sony didn't even have a booth. I'm not in marketing. I think the obvious choice would be maybe Sony might want to have had this game there, get lots of people playing it, get lots of people excited the week that was going to be out. But who am I?
Gamescom is a great point to bring up. I hadn't really thought of that, but they did drop it during Gamescom when you have tens of thousands of people coming into a showroom floor where you could have had a PlayStation booth with just dozens and dozens of computers set up for people to play Concord. It could have had videos made on it. You know, every major publication would have been talking about it. That could have been great. And they didn't do that, which leads you to think that either they were so confident that this was going to pop off, they just didn't feel the need to bother trying. Maybe that's it. They're like, we don't need to market it. It's going to be successful anyways. Or they knew it was going to be a failure, and so they didn't bother wasting the money. Neither is great. I'm
not a marketer for Sony, so I think it's more interesting to discuss why Sony is abandoning this game so soon, not even really giving it a chance to find its footing. Max, I start with you. What happened here?
One other thing I just remembered, I've talked about this before, but like back with God of War Ragnarok, I had a contact at Sony who was divine. She was amazing. And she, when like Spider-Man 2 came out, I was talking with her about like review codes and stuff. And she was like, she made a couple of comments that made me think the marketing team within Sony was getting decimated, because at one point she was like, yeah, sorry, we're running on like a skeleton crew. And at the time I was like, oh, maybe people are just sick or something. And then she said other stuff like, oh, I used to be allowed to distribute review codes, now I can't. It's a separate person that does that elsewhere in corporate. So thinking back to it now, I'm getting, maybe it is the case that one of the ways Sony is trying to save money is that they have changed how they market stuff, and they've started working with the skeleton crew in the marketing department. I don't know.
The big question is, who was this game for? And I think the Overwatch comparison is an obvious one. The general sort of Guardians of the Galaxy of it all was kind of something that jumped out at me. What's funny is to look back at the initial reveal for this game. The very first glimpse we got of it was this completely sort of ambiguous, nebulous, like literally in a nebula, this ship traveling through space. We had no idea what this game was. We heard it was a first-person shooter of some variety, something multiplayer flavored. And the thing that people were talking about for the better part of a year about this game, following its announcement, was the CGI cheeseburger that was shown in the trailer, which is quite a literal nothing burger, as it turns out. Then we got this sort of the big reveal of the cinematic narrative cutscenes that were going to be holding this thing together, which, you know, admittedly looked pretty slick, and then that immediately tossed into gameplay that really, I think, left a lot of people cold. And again, hero shooters were the new hotness back in 2016 when this game was early in development. I think they spent something like 8 years making this thing.
Yeah, that's what they've said. Yeah, the burger is a great example. Like, this is what everybody was talking about for like a year, and it had nothing at all to do with the game, like literally nothing. So why was it Like, the more I look at it, this trailer just doesn't make any sense. It sets false expectations. People are like very confused at what we're even doing here. Like, this has nothing to do with a 5v5 hero shooter. Like, they were trying so hard to just make the characters feel like Guardians of the Galaxy 2.0, I guess, that they just forgot that, no, at the end of the day, you're still selling a hero shooter. Like, even if the characters were super likable and lovable, you got to sell people on the game, because the game is what they're going to be playing. You know, you're going to see a cutscene once a week that's 90 seconds long, and then you're going to be playing, hopefully for them, hours and hours and hours of the game. So you got to sell the game first and foremost, in my opinion. And they just kind of had it backwards. And even then, like, I don't think the characters were that interesting or compelling, so it didn't matter.
I think they spent something like, what, 8 years making this thing? Yeah, back then that was also there was one Guardians of the Galaxy movie out, and then there was another one that people were looking forward to, and now we are like, that team has disbanded in the MCU. Like, we're so far beyond that. And anybody who is actually like hankering for a Guardians of the Galaxy game, we got one of those in like 2018. It was
great.
And then
21. That was unironically a very good game. If you have not played Guardians of the Galaxy, you should. It's very good. It's way better than you would think. But it unfortunately didn't do very well, because a lot of people thought it was going to be like Marvel's Avengers, the Avengers game that released shortly before this, which is too bad, because this game is way better than that game was. Very good.
if you want to play a new hero shooter featuring Marvel characters, there's one coming out in December. Marvel Rivals is right around the corner. So it's just, it just feels like the answer to a question that nobody asked, aside from, I don't know, maybe some VCs or board members. It very much looks like a product for the sake of being a product. And it sucks, because clearly a lot of people worked really hard on it. It is definitely polished. I saw a photo on Reddit that people were being a little bit snarky of, which is a screen cap of the IGN review that Travis Northup did, giving it a 7, saying it was good. That was never the issue. It's not the fact that it's a broken game or an inherently bad game. It's just that a game that nobody really wants to play. And when it is a
I get what he's saying, but that sentence is a little funny. Okay, let's just take it back.
Game or an inherently bad game. It's just that a game. It's not the fact that it's a broken game or an inherently bad game. It's just that a game that nobody really wants to play. And when it
it's not that it's an inherently bad game or anything. It's just that nobody wants to play it, which is true. I do think that's the case, and I will agree. Concord mechanically at launch is pretty solid as far as like a hero shooter goes. It plays well, movement's good. There's a lot of varieties of different abilities and stuff. I don't necessarily like some of the way that they interplay. I don't like how in some modes, like if you went around with a hero, you have to change the hero. I understand why they did it, because they wanted to avoid you sitting on a character for, hours and hours and hours if it was broken or whatever. So I get why they did that. I just didn't think it was that fun. Like, I could justify it, but it wasn't that fun. So there were other things. But I think the point was, when you review a game, you have to review the entire package. And for something like Concord, part of the package is the overall offering, which is much more lackluster. The fact that it's $40 in an age of free-to-play live service games, that does affect it. It just does. And I mean, if you're going to review something like Hellblade 2, and you're going to say, hey, for however much that was, $50, I think. If you're going to say, hey, it's really, really short, and that's going to be a detraction on your review, it's going to be a -1 or whatever, I think you have to mention that this is a live service game that's coming out and is being charged for when everything else is free. If everything else's price is $0 and this is priced at $40, the like percentage difference is literally undefined. Okay, it is incalculably more expensive to play Concord than Overwatch because it's free.
It is a strictly multiplayer game. Not having people to play it is kind of a big issue, but that's a bigger problem outside of the game itself. That's sort of a societal infrastructure type of problem.
And I do agree. It's tough to like factor into a review that's done like at launch or before launch, how many people are going to play it, because you could review this game and be like, yeah, if a lot of people are playing this and you can get quick matches and stuff, then maybe it's a 7. But if nobody's playing it, it's going to play more like a 2, because you're not going to be able to find matches or anything. So I will give them credit that is, you can't really factor that into a review that's happening before you know what the player counts are like.
And it's funny because, you know, Sony's clearly been betting really big on live service games. We heard at one point that they had, I think, 12 of them in development. We've since heard that they've halved that.
Which is crazy. Some of them we've heard of, like The Last of Us Part 2 online, whatever, ultra premium experience. That was one of them that was canned. We've heard of a couple of others that have been canned, but there's also a few of these live service games we've never heard of, that were never mentioned or announced, that were canned. So just imagine how much money they wasted across the board from studios you've never, like, you didn't even realize were working on something.
They had a huge win earlier this year with Helldivers, which up until the halfway point of the year, at least last I checked, was the best-selling game of the year, period. So clearly, live service isn't inherently the issue here. It's more just making games that people actually want to play. And you can look at this game for 3 seconds and you see how expensive it is. Mm-hmm. It is clearly a very polished, you know, even if you hate the character designs, like, a lot of work went into this game. It looks like it's been cooking for the better part of a decade. But then it's also, you look at, I don't know, the games that blow up on Steam. You look at something like Pal World, like AAA polish is not necessarily the thing that gets people gravitating towards games. You know, there's frequently runaway hits on Steams that are, you know, arguably like games as a service that are kind of janky, and that doesn't matter if people are having a good time. This just kind of feels like, you know, that final paper that you spent all night working on. You really just wanted to get everything perfect, get it totally right, and then you wound up not turning it in on time and failing the class. So, yeah,
That's a good comparison. Yeah, that's good. I like that. It's a day late and $1 too expensive.
Big flop for Sony. Not surprising, kind of looking at the timeline of events here. Skipping Gamescom, again, that was sort of a big canary in a coal mine moment. The fact that Sony didn't even decide to get this in front of people. So, yeah, it's sad. And I hope that it also kind of serves as a warning, because, like, we see so many games pop up as live service projects and then quickly just keel over and die. Or, you know, we start sort of hearing the beginnings of their death rattle, so to speak. Foam Stars was a big PS5 and PC and PS4 game that launched earlier this year.
Was it, though? I tried it. I bought it because I was like, oh, I'll try making a video on it. I don't think we ever did, because I couldn't find enough to even talk about it. It was like, it's worse Splatoon with like $50 skins. It was unbelievably bad. It was so bad.
And again, it's a games as a service. It is a game. It is sort of like Splatoon, but it's foamy. And come on in, everybody, and check it out and play it. And that just recently flipped the switch to free to play, because people, I'm guessing, weren't paying money to buy it and to play it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, as you say, in this case, it doesn't seem to be an issue of quality, because we did give it a 7 out of 10, and I should point out that is right in line with all other reviewers. It has a 67 on Metacritic, so basically everyone was giving this about a 7. Not a bad game, it's just
It is funny that this is like the second time they've mentioned the review. I don't know if they're shaken by it. I do agree, like, some people were pointing to it. I think they also gave Dustborn a 7. Is that true? Can somebody check? Did they give it a 7? Hold on, I don't want to say it if it's not true. Dustborn, IGN. The idea that, yeah, they did. Jesus Christ. If the idea that they would give this a 7 is unbelievable to me. Who did they have review this? She covers Roblox. Oh, she's literally only ever reviewed House Flipper 2 and Dustborn. That just seems mean to have her review this. Also gave it a 7. I don't know, man. That was kind of cruel to have her do it. But that's part of the reason is people like, you're giving Concord and Dustborn 7s. And then what was the other game they gave? I think they gave Black Myth like an 8 or something. You know, it's like, okay.
Game, like Max pointed out, just a game that nobody was asking for, nobody was looking for, and didn't have an audience to actually release out to. Destin, Xbox is no stranger to, stepping on rakes, as Ryan McCaffrey likes to say. What was sort of your reaction to this unprecedented news earlier this week?
I have no idea who this game was ever made for. You just look at it, and right away, the characters feel bland, boring, and derivative. Everybody was calling it a Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff from the first trailer revealing the characters. They did not like the interaction between the characters. So I'm left wondering, like, was there ever focus testing done on this? Were they getting positive reinforcement? Because I didn't see any positivity toward it from the initial trailer. So
derivative is a very good word. The entire feeling is that this game is the product of probably executives looking at other successful stuff and just saying, let's try that. It doesn't feel like anybody had a pitch for something really unique and different. And it's like they pointed out earlier, where when this game was allegedly first come up with and pitched was like 2016. That's how long they've been working on this. Like, when this was initially starting to get worked on, if they actually spent 8 years on it, like Donald Trump had never, like he hadn't even been elected president yet. That's how long ago that was. Okay. Do you feel old yet? So back then, Guardians of the Galaxy seems like it's doing well. The first movie did pretty well. And then like, oh, well, let's just make that, but in Overwatch with some narrative stuff, and it'll be good. And then they spent 8 years working on it. And it's just, maybe the bigger question is, how the hell do you spend 8 years working on this? This has been a trend in the games industry for a while, where I just feel like, what the hell are they spending all this time doing? Like, I get it, COVID sort of delayed things. I get it. But it seems insane to me that they could spend 8 years on something like this. Games are hard to make, no doubt, but 8 years, almost a decade for this? Like, that seems insane. No crunch extends time. Maybe, but then you see other companies like CDPR. They were able to put Phantom Liberty together with a similar team size in the span of like a year and a half, 2 years, effectively. Like, it seems like a managerial issue. I think you're right, Anurag. I think you're right. I don't know how you spend 8 years on something like this.
once you launch the game and you see their version of Drax, and we get a peek at the cinematics with these characters we have no connection to, we don't understand the relationship. And I saw somebody online compare it to jumping into season 3 of a television show, and you're just expected to have some connection to whoever these characters are supposed to be, and you just don't. So
yeah, no, absolutely true. It's really weird how the cutscenes play out, and it's just, you're supposed to understand. Like at one point, this guy who's supposed to be, his name is Lennox in the game, but he's supposed to be their Star-Lord, basically, who loves hot sauce because that's relatable. He takes a minute to like talk to the computer that runs the ship in this weirdly intimate way, and he's like, "I just need you to know, I appreciate you, and there's no one else I'd rather be on this adventure with." And you're like, who the hell are you? What are you talking about? Like, it's a computer. Chill out. Like, what are we doing? It's just really, really weird. Maybe they initially thought they were going to have a story mode that was canned. Maybe there's something like that builds a relationship between these characters. Then there's an online component. Maybe that could work, but I don't
fails
know.
On a storytelling perspective. And I actually don't really agree with Travis Northup's review completely. I think that the gameplay feels very slow, and I think the more you play and you get matched with, stacked teams and such, at least as a solo player, it becomes much less fun. In addition, there are modes where they tried something new, and it would lock you completely out of using a character a second time, trying to shake up the sandbox. But you know what I don't like being told to do by a video game? Not play as my favorite character. So, like, there were just so many strange decisions made with Concord that I don't understand. But at the end of the day, everybody basically said, we don't want to pay $40 to play this. And they didn't. And that's the only thing you can really do as a consumer, not buy things that aren't of interest to you.
And I'm so glad to see that people voted with their wallets, because that's all it really takes. Everybody collectively said, we're good. And it was a colossal flop as a result. It's really that simple. Like with so many of these games, like, oh, you don't like the microtransactions, you don't like the skins, don't buy them. Easy. But they keep doing it because people keep buying them. You know, like it's just, if you don't like something, if everybody agrees that they don't like it and they don't buy it, things will actually change.
It's not the first game to stumble out the gate, although, you know, it definitely has maybe the biggest stumble. But, you know,
stumble out the gate. Hold on. This reminds me that Concord did not stumble out the gate. What Concord did was this. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up. Some of you might know where I'm going with this. Hold on. Hold on, please hold. This might be it. Hold on, I have to find the very specific clip where it starts. Yeah, this was Concord. That's Concord, okay? They launch the go gun, and then that's not even the right phrase. They fire the gun, everybody go, and just immediately leg snaps and they collapse to the ground screaming in agony. And then a vet comes over and puts them down to put them out of their misery. That's what Concord did. Not quite a stumble. A little bit worse. You
know, I think of other games that have had comebacks, games like No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy XIV. I think in these cases, the developers put their heads down and they just quietly get to work improving their game, and eventually after some period of time, the game is in a good place and is sort of welcomed again by its community. But like here, Sony is
what community?
Well, I'm just saying
there is no community.
Okay.
It capped off. It's like under 700 players on Steam. Clearly, this is not resonating with people. I don't see a world where this game goes offline, they put their heads down, and they come back, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, I love Concord!" all of a sudden, like the people who were willing to buy the game have made their voices clear and said, "I'm not going to."
Yeah. No, I mean, to No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy XIV, all of these were things that people wanted. These were games that were, if anything, they underdelivered, or they launched in a rough state. But the idea of I don't know, the people who made The Witcher doing a big open world futuristic game, or a Final Fantasy MMO, these are like things that are like, okay, I'm in. Mm-hmm. What is Concord? Like, who is this again? Who is this for? And even if it was just try to kind of loop people in the most basic, just the tiniest bit of curiosity, $40 is going to prevent that. And I mean, when Overwatch has gone free to play, when everything else is free to play, it's just there's barely any pull to draw people in, and there's a big, huge paywall right in front of them actually checking it out of morbid curiosity. Mm-hmm. Like, had this even launched as just a perk on PlayStation Plus, which again, Sony have a subscription service. Yep. It seems like maybe that could have benefited. Like a bunch of great games as a service have actually gotten a good boost from PlayStation Plus. Rocket League and Fall Guys both launched as PlayStation Plus games, and those are the kind of games that if you were charging $40 for them or $20 for them, with no opportunity to check them out, just kind of like, I'll take it for a spin. I don't see those games ever having taken off, but they were able to kind of attract a active player base because there was an easy way to get on board, an easy way to check it out. You look at another big competitor to Concord is Apex Legends, mm-hmm. and that, when it dropped, it came out of nowhere, which again just made a big kind of splash on its own. And again, it was from a reputable studio, it's from Respawn. Mm-hmm. So,
and EA spent millions paying every streamer you've ever heard of to play it for days, and they played it, and then they kept playing it because they really enjoyed it. You know, and of course it was free to play. You could just get in there and try it, and people did it and loved it. So I think with a lot of it, there's just, at the end of the day, it was a game nobody really wanted, and I think knowledge of the price point really, really harmed it. So I agree with them.
You know, people are like, what? Did you hear about Apex Legends? I don't know. What's that? Oh, it's like a battle royale, but it's in the Titanfall universe. Cool.
Valve
yeah.
also released Deadlock, which is invite only, and it's behind a lock system to get in. And last I checked, it had like 90,000 concurrents, putting it regularly in the top 10 games on SteamDB. So you have people like Valve also entering this market, and guess what? That game's free. So that's what you're up against. And when you come out and you're like, well, you got to pay $40 to play this one. Why?
Yeah. No, there's a huge.
I think the comparison with PlayStation Plus also, you have to reference that. It's just like they said, they have their own service. Sony could have done that, put Concord on PlayStation Plus. If you have PlayStation Plus, you try it for free. Otherwise, it's $40. But they didn't do that, and instead charged everybody $40. And I think it was pretty clear that was just greed personified. Like, that was them trying to milk everybody for the little bit of extra cash. It worked with Helldivers. Why won't it work now? And it blew up in their face. And to their credit, they refunded everybody on the back end. So anybody that bought it is getting their money back, which is great. And I will say I did get my refund on PlayStation for Concord. I bought the PS5 version of it, and it did. I did get my money back, so good on them. But I really think that that's what it is. It was a lot of arrogance, thinking that they could just get away with it and people would suck it up and buy it.
On Sony's part, which we see on a pretty regular basis, where it's almost like somebody up there was just expecting people to care. Someone they were like, oh yeah, there's a brand new first party PlayStation 5 multiplayer game. It's coming out in August, $40. But like, that's not enough to move the needle. That's not going to get people excited or on board. That's not a, I don't know. There's no there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you know,
who do you think you are, Nintendo? Get out of here.
Valve being like, we put out a new game. Everyone loses their mind because Valve doesn't put out a new game ever so often. They don't do that much. So something to care about.
It could be that in this case, Sony just could not afford to keep this game running with the player count so low, because this is Firewalk Studios. It's their first game. They were formed in 2018, so that's why the math about it being in development for 8 years doesn't really add up. It would have had to start in 2016, but the studio was founded in 2018.
Yeah, my interpretation was that it was a pitch, and it was a project that people started working on before they founded the studio. They founded the studio with a big a handful of investments from various places, but they founded the studio once they were like, okay, we're going to do this. But they had been working on the game prior to that. Very few studios are founded with no idea of what their first game is going to be. Usually they have a concept or a vertical slice that they sell to investors, and then they found the studio with that money.
Whatever. This is their first game, so they've had no money coming in, no revenue, except for whatever investment capital they had, and then of course Sony bought them last year. So like, this is it. They've got no money coming in, and it may just be that Sony can't afford to keep it running, because Guha Bella from Velen Studios, they made Knockout City, which is, they know something about, launching a live service game and then having some issues with it. He told GamesIndustry.biz that a 50-person team would amount to about $500,000 a month just in labor costs. Based on that, he estimates a $20 game would need to sell $25,000 a month to match this. Concord had a $40 price tag, and Firewalk Studios has at least 150 staff. So it could just be that Sony just could not afford to keep this game running.
Well, to be clear, they said they were going to reevaluate a way to get it to new audiences or to their audience, whatever. I interpreted that as they're going to basically take it away. They're going to relaunch it with a bigger marketing campaign as free to play or something. I still don't think that works, but my interpretation of the post that the head of the studio made was that they were gonna try again at some point in the future, probably putting it on PlayStation Plus as they should have from the beginning. But I still don't think that really works. The brand of Concord is so overwhelmingly tarnished. I just don't see it changing or recovering. And like they said earlier, when people are like, oh, well, it could make a comeback, like No Man's Sky had much more negativity surrounding it at launch. Sure, but they had negativity because people cared, because people liked the idea. They wanted that game and they didn't get it. So with this is a game nobody wants and nobody really cares about. I don't think it'll magically be successful just because you launched it for free. Like, I don't think that changes it. If they try again, it will be pretty hilarious to see it once again flop. But the other thing to remember about this is that most studios that are brand new, that have not proven themselves, usually you get a company like PlayStation who's interested in buying them out. You have them come in and they will basically say, okay, behind closed doors, we're really interested in buying you. We think that this could be really, really good. We think you have a lot of potential as a studio. We love the talent. We love the concept. We love all of this. We'd like to buy you out, but you need to nail your first launch. If you can do that, then we're game. And we've seen it with other studios that Sony has bought before. You know, even when they bought like Blue Point, for example. They buy Blue Point after Blue Point demonstrates themselves as a world-class talent. They show that they are worth being owned multiple times. But with Concord, they bought them out before the game had even been announced. What does that tell you? That tells you, I think, that they, amazingly enough, were so wildly confident that this was going to be successful, they were willing to put aside even the danger of Microsoft bidding for, like, they didn't even want to entertain that. They were worried that Microsoft would come in and try to buy them up or outbid them or something if Concord popped off. And they thought this game had so much potential that the odds were high. If Xbox got the chance to buy them up, they might be outbid. So they came in and bought them privately before any of that had the potential to happen. And they probably got a decent deal on it too, I would imagine. But that should tell you how out of touch those executives are that are making those decisions, that they thought that this was going to pop off to the point where they were willing to spend millions of dollars well before it was justified.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, they made $1 million. It likely cost at least $100 million.
On the low end.
Like some people are saying $200 million, plus they purchased the studio to make this product. And I just don't think there's any salvaging it. It's just too low of a retention rate, and I don't see how you get players interested in this. The fact of the matter is Concord is not cool to play or have any interaction with, and that's how people feel about it.
Yep. And as I've said many times, one of the most potent forces in all of gaming is peer pressure. And the second a game is deemed uncool and cringe, you're not shaking that. Like, honestly, being called cringe is probably worse than being called like buggy or broken, because at least you can fix that. But you can't fix the dialogue in like Saints Row. You know, you can't fix the dialogue in Forspoken. You can polish it. You can get running really, really well. You can't fix that stuff though.
So what?
We've seen this.
Oh, go ahead, Max.
I was going to say, do you remember Paragon, the sort of MOBA-style hero shooter that Epic put out, and then subsequently said, never mind, and then I think issued refunds? And I think the cool thing they did there was they made the assets free for people to use in Unreal or whatever. But yeah, like that was there. I don't think there was any, ill will towards that game. It just didn't attract a player base. And again, like Epic has a little bit of, they got a cushion to fall back on. They're not, they're not really hurting there. The people are, as long as people are using Unreal, that's fine. And clearly they got back on their feet with Fortnite after that. But yeah, this just strikes me as Sony just pulling the ripcord as hard as possible, because they are already in the hole with this game, and it's coming out just not even keeping itself afloat. This thing sunk like a brick. And yeah, I'm wondering if this is, you can give a game like this the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we'll see it reemerge as some kind of a free-to-play thing, but there's so much just negativity surrounding it. The reputation this game has is as one of the biggest failures in video game history, and it's not even like there's room for a redemption arc. Like it's again, No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk, these are things that people desperately wanted, and if anything, they were victims of really high expectations that came back to bite them. And in this case, the product reveal was a nothing burger flying through space. Like who would want this? So I'm thinking this is going to be more one of those David Zaslav style write-offs. But yeah, again, I wanted to see Coyote versus Acme. I didn't want to play Concord. I didn't care. I don't,
One thing I had somebody reach out about, I had somebody who works in, they're like a corporate accountant. And they reached out about one of the videos I previously made where I said maybe they're just going to take the tax write-off and do a net operating loss carry forward on it for the next 7 years and call it good. And this person reached out who is basically the guy that would be doing the write-offs in the company for this, if that's what they decided to do. He said it's complicated because they didn't pay for the operating costs for the last like the first 6 years of development, or I have 4 years of the studio's existence or anything. They bought the studio and then they ran the development costs and everything for like a year after that. And he's like, depending on how they categorized the purchase a year ago or 2 years ago, it might not be as simple as writing off this project, because they bought the studio, which is an asset over here. The asset hasn't lost the money. It's the project they were doing. So you can write off the project here, but the asset you can't just write off unless you're going to like can it and shut down the whole studio and stuff. But I don't think they want to do that. They just bought the studio. Like, why would you do that? So I think that there's just, none of this is as simple as, well, just do this and then move on. Like, all of this is way more complicated by their own making. It didn't have to be this bad, but they did this to themselves.
No, there's one thing I want to touch on about this game, and it just strikes me as just a kind of incongruous product. Aside from the fact that it's either generic or the style, the designs aren't for everybody, the pairing of a fast-paced or medium-paced multiplayer shooter with weekly narrative cutscenes are just antithetical.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people who are after narrative storytelling and beautifully polished cutscenes, like speaking as one of those people, you play single-player games.
Yeah.
Multiplayer, you want rock solid gameplay. You want something fast paced. You don't want something getting in the way, stopping you down to tell you, hold your hand and tell you a story. The Overwatch vignettes, I could be wrong, but I feel like those kind of came after the fact. There were a handful of them floating around, but that game launched with a kind of a cool like starter pack of action figures. I think it was 12 people on the roster at first, and they gradually trickled out these little shorts, giving you a little bit more context. But it was always gameplay first, story second. And in this case, this was one of the big selling points, was we're going to get a new, highly polished cutscene every week. Dude, Fortnite doesn't even do that. Fortnite does like a new cutscene every like 4 months or something. They do that with a season pass.
And I'm going to do a poll here real quick. With these cutscenes, if any of you have played Call of Duty recently, or maybe you played Fortnite or Concord, I'm willing to bet that you didn't even watch those cutscenes. Okay? That's why I'm going to ask you, do you watch the cutscenes in these live service games? Yes? No? Rarely. Okay? I just want to know where you're at. Because I know if I'm booting up Fortnite, if I'm booting up Call of Duty, I'm not sitting down for the next 5 minutes and watching a cutscene play out. Like, maybe it'll play out if there's no skip option. But if I'm booting up Warzone, I'm booting up Warzone because I want to play Warzone. I understand there's a story and stuff, but I'm not like playing Warzone to watch a cutscene. Like, that's not why I'm there. Overwatch only. Like, for some games, absolutely I'll watch the cutscenes. But for these live service games, if I'm playing Overwatch, I'm playing Overwatch to play Overwatch. I don't really need to watch a cutscene explaining the intricacies of the characters. Just for me, it's not why I'm playing those games. And same thing with like Call of Duty, same thing with all of these others. Yeah, rarely I think is probably fair for most people, but I just don't think it really lines up with how these games are built and pitched to people. It's just not why people are playing them.
No.
Yeah, and when we did get those cutscenes, the writing was, I'll just say, profoundly bad. It was just not interesting or engaging whatsoever. You have no idea who the characters are. There's no reason to latch on to any of them, and they don't really give you a reason to appreciate who they are as individuals in the game. So they even failed with that.
Destin, how do we compare this to Redfall? Maybe that's probably the most high-profile, disaster release for Xbox in recent years. Concord actually reviewed a little bit better than Redfall. It has a 64 on OpenCritic as opposed to 57 for Redfall.
I think the difference is Redfall was much more broken at launch. I mean, Redfall's problems were that it was basically unplayable on a technical level, whereas Concord grew unplayable within a few days because there was nobody to matchmake with. So they were similarly, but at least during the previews and stuff, Concord, I think, played decently well when there were people to play with.
But Redfall's still here, even though Arcane Austin has unfortunately been shut down. You can still play Redfall today, and it's actually in better shape than it was because, like I said...
What the hell is this gameplay? You tell... Okay, this is just funny. Okay, well, good. Whatever, IGN, I don't care. Good.
Austin has unfortunately been shut down. You can still play Redfall today, and it's actually in better shape than it was because, like I said, the developers just quietly worked on it, and they updated it, and there was even a final update that provided that offline mode. This is great B-roll, by the way, that we're seeing right here.
Yeah, I mean, Redfall was equally problematic. It's a game that came out that I'm not sure people wanted from Arcane Austin, which no longer exists. And we saw what happened with Arcane Austin, unfortunately. And I do wonder where this leaves the development studio, Firewalk, which is now part of the PlayStation family, as we've recently seen another failure with Suicide Squad and how WB has decided to move forward with that. So it's just really, really unfortunate that these games are coming out and they're trying to break into new genres, but they're doing so in a way that doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work for the studios who are making those games, and it doesn't resonate with players, and it's disastrous for these companies. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't understand how this ever got greenlit, how this got past focus testing, and how nobody just said, hey, I don't like this.
There is a vibe among a lot of these groups that I alluded to earlier with some like content creators and streamers where they're like, let's just focus on the positivity. Positivity is great. Self-deception is not. And refusing to acknowledge obvious problems is self-deception. When you're just lying to yourself because you want to be more optimistic and positive about stuff, that doesn't help anybody. Okay? All that does is set yourself up to be conned. And with this, like, it seems like a lot of these studios basically conned themselves. There was the report, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, which game was it? I think it was it Saints Row? The Saints Row reboot, where the head of that project, he basically said all of the negativity was white noise. Was it Saints Row or was it a different game? Which one was it? There was a whole story about it. You guys know what I'm talking about? When they were like, oh yeah, no, any of the critiques or criticisms are just white noise. They said specifically white noise. I can't remember. I think it was Saints Row. Anyway, there's been multiple instances of this where there are games where clearly the feedback is overwhelmingly negative. You know, people are just not interested at all. And you would think that they would take that feedback and try to grow from it and be like, okay, interesting. Let's figure it out. How can we fix this? Maybe it was Suicide Squad. But basically, you would think that they would take that feedback. But a lot of these studios approach it as, no, if people don't like our game or are bashing character designs or the writing or whatever, it's just white noise. It's just people being unfair. It was Concord. It was an ex-Bungie dev who said it. Oh, really? Oh, well, who knew? But I've definitely seen stories of other projects and other games where a similar sentiment is echoed, where they have this way of doing things where they just don't take the critical feedback and they just take it as people just being unreasonable and we'll just do our own thing and move on from there. And then you get a Concord because they just didn't listen to any of the critical feedback. And then they're surprised when nobody's interested in the game. And it's the same thing with like Forespoken when that game launched and of course was very, very cringy. there was reporting that people within the studio were genuinely shocked at the impressions people had, because a lot of people within the studio did not realize it would be perceived as like cringy. They thought people would really think that character was slaying. They really thought that, but that's because they did not connect with it. They didn't see it. They had no idea, which is pretty amazing if you think about it, that they didn't realize that maybe that's how that would be perceived. But still, it's wild.
Well, I don't know what this means for Firewalk Studios. This, like I said, was their only game. I think it's probably inevitable that we'll be hearing about layoffs at some point in the future, which is very unfortunate. I'll be very sorry to hear about that. But I just don't really see what Firewalk Studios is going to be doing in place of Concord. But Matt,
and they have the secret level short to look forward to, which will feature Concord.
Exactly. This is the show. This is the Love, Death, and Robots anthology show. Yeah.
You know what really sucks about this is the people who made the decision to make this game what it was are the ones who are way above the pay grade of the people who actually made the game, who are going to get laid off. And that sucks. It's the same deal with Redfall. It's the same deal with Suicide Squad. And in both those cases, I don't know. I was like, hey, what if the people who made Dishonored made a vampire game you can play with your friends? Okay, cool. That's a neat idea. Suicide Squad, whatever. Yeah, Rocksteady wants to try their hand at it. Again, there's some semblance of like a kernel of a good idea there. In this case, I don't know what the initial appeal was, aside from just trying to cash in on the most lucrative looking games as a service, live service model that was the hot thing 6-7 years ago.
And that's literally the extent of it. And that's why people have been kind of, as some people have said, grave dancing on Concord's grave. It's not because people hate the people at Firewalk specifically. It's not because they, after one of the devs called the critics of the game talentless hacks, then you've kind of opened yourself up to getting crucified. So yeah, that definitely I think is a factor. But for the most part, most of the people working on this game, I'm sure, are very nice people, very capable people, very talented people. Nobody's doubting that. The reason people are grave dancing is because of what Concord represents, which is the soulless, lifeless corporate pursuit of quick cash by trend chasing. That's why they chase it. That's why they chase it.
I know. I mean, Sony, they bought
Celebrate it.
Firewalk just last April, I believe. Someone at Sony looked at this and said, yes, we will pay money for Concord and release it
a lot
next
of money.
Summer. But Max, on the flip side of all this bad news for Sony, we should mention that Astrobot is out now, and it's just fantastic.
Astrobot's killer.
It got 9 out of 10 from IGN.
Please, yeah, and if you want to take it for a spin and
come on,
you haven't, just load up Astro's Playroom. There's your free-to-play demo of what that game is like, because it's just that, but for 4 times as long.
Oh yeah,
and PlayStation does deserve props for offering full refunds for Concord and taking it offline and just saying, hey, we're going to give you your money back. We're going to eat this one and move forward however we need to.
Yeah, which I do think they deserve credit for, and I will always give them credit for that, even though I think the game is laughably terrible. As a product offering, they do deserve credit for giving people their money back. That's props to them. I'm sure that wasn't easy to do. I'm sure it was a headache. Yeah, they weren't giving up that much money, but at least they did it.
Crazy, crazy times. I've been covering this business for a long time. Like I said, I think this is an unprecedented move to pull a huge first-party game with such short amount of time actually being available on the market.
Might have just been that they were like, hey, we're not going to make any money from this. We're just going to lose money. And we're about to launch a PS5 Pro. Let's just let that dominate the news and headlines, and we'll just call it good. We'll try again later. Maybe they have other plans, but it is pretty funny that they have that big mess up, and then they come out with like a PS5 Pro announcement that's extremely expensive. It doesn't seem to do that much differently. I don't know, man. PlayStation's just really struggled. There's some rumors and people speculating based on other reports and rumors, people suggesting that at this PlayStation showcase there might not even be first-party studio games. It might only be third-party, which would be insane. I don't know if they're going to do that. They got to have some first party stuff. Like Sony is just, they're so far behind where they should be at this point in the generation. It's kind of tragic. They gave refunds so they wouldn't get sued. There's no precedent to suggest that they could get sued if they didn't offer refunds. If they just shut it down fully offline, maybe somebody, but like even that, it's extremely expensive to file a lawsuit. At least with like big games, you can talk about class action lawsuits where everybody kind of works together on big payouts. But like, what, the 35 people that play the game are gonna file a lawsuit? Like, what? So they can get their money back? I hate to break it to you, when you sign up for any of those EULAs or terms of service for any of these games, you agree to go through mediation and arbitration first before going through with a lawsuit. So even if you wanted to sue Sony over this stuff, you'd have to go through like mediation first, which would then be, again, very expensive, take years, and it wouldn't do anything. So yeah, I just I do not expect there to be any lawsuits for this type of thing. You know, it's just not that simple. So I'm using 4090, still can't run 8K resolution at playable frame rate. Yeah, nobody should ever be running an 8K resolution. Like, in order, we looked at it earlier in the stream. In order to like actually get the benefit of 8K resolution, you'd have to be sitting like 2 centimeters away from the screen. Like, it's that the resolution is so freaking high. Like, it's laughable. Like, it's ridiculous. What is mediation? It's something that happens where like basically you go with like the two parties in the dispute go and sit next to either like a mediator, and usually it's an attorney or somebody that's been mutually agreed upon, but you'll go and sit with your lawyers and you basically talk it out. Like, did you ever see like The Office? Did you ever see The Office episode where Michael does a deposition for Jan's lawsuit? It kind of looks like that. That's like arbitration. I keep saying mediation. I mean, like, technically there's mediating and then there's arbitration, but like, you get what I mean. It kind of looks like that. I have some family that just recently had a deposition as a part of mediation and arbitration. And it was like a whole thing because they were dealing with a lawsuit. So it's basically what you would be doing in a lawsuit in a courtroom, but it's done privately first, and then if you can't come to a mutually agreed upon solution, then things move forward. But it's a whole thing. They could have filed a lawsuit for The Last of Us 2 for false advertising. In the trailer they showed Joel, but it was BS. You then have to open it up for lawsuits to be filed for any trailer for a movie that has it edited in a tricky way. You remember Spider-Man No Way Home, I think is the one with all the crossover characters? Remember when they just like turned off the layers that had the different Spider-Men in the shot and just left the one Spider-Man, but you could still see Lizard getting kicked in the face, so it just didn't look right in the clip. You'd have to then be allowed to sue those people for doing that. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't think you want to be able to sue people for that. And that's why a case like that would be dismissed without a doubt. But if you want to prove me wrong, I encourage you to go file the lawsuit, and we will watch and I'm sure be thoroughly entertained all along the way. Anyway. Thank you also, Paprika99 for becoming a member. Appreciate you. Kush, thank you for re-upping your membership. That's awesome. Samaya, thank you for the super chat. Luke, you reacted to Metaphor Rifantasio previews. I didn't do any reactions to it. It's a little more niche, but people are saying that it looks really, really good. And so maybe we'll look at it in the future. And Nathan, thank you also for resubbing with Prime. Thank you for that. Yeah, as for Metaphor, I'm done to check it out. Some people say they love it, but it's definitely more niche. Okay. Bungie's on the brink of extinction if they don't over-deliver with Marathon. A hot mess incoming. I mean, without a doubt, they need to nail it. They absolutely need to nail it. I watched at least 20 hours of your content last week alone. It's really good for in the background. You should really consider plugging your Twitch more. Yeah, I should do that. We, I think Jacob and I are going to work on new little call to actions. So when you're like watching a clip or something, we'll do that. And then at the end of the video during the like end screen, I want to have little, like a catalog of little thanks for watching that clip. Make sure to subscribe and check out the Twitch stream or watch on here live. Yeah, I definitely agree. We need to do that. So I would buy Concord if you could play as Tommy Wiseau. Yeah, Tommy Wiseau, or if you could, like I was saying yesterday on stream, if you could play as like Nicolas Cage, I'd be all in for that. All in for that. Are you active in your Discord? There's some stuff going on under Gamer with the Discord that I can't talk about. ... I know it sounds super scary, but basically there's some stuff going on that limits things like that. I know it's super vague. I hope to be able to talk about all of that stuff soon in a lot of detail, but yeah, there's stuff going on that complicates it, but yeah. Sony needs to focus on more banger games because I feel like there should be more like last year, more years like last year. Yeah, we're just at a weird spot. We're at a lull in the industry where they're trying to figure out what the hell like the next however many years looks like, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how it plays out. Because they have stuff in the works. They have stuff they're doing, but we just haven't seen any of it. Crimson Desert will be Game of the Year 2025, bet. I mean, I think it depends. If they actually are... oh, yeah, this was fun. I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was us at the preview event. The one and only Wolfheart. The one and only. The one and only. Luality, of course. Baldur's Gate streamer extraordinaire. Me, a guy there. It's pretty Gucci. Pretty Gucci, I'll tell you what. Can't wait to talk about it. Wait for the 19th. Just you wait. Just you wait. It's a good time. When can you talk about Veilguard? 19th. 19th, I can talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. Need the one with long hair? Yeah, kind of. Sort of. Yeah, no, everybody was delightful. Everybody was very, very nice. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else you might recognize in this shot. These are a lot of like BioWare folks. I think there's some IGN people over there. The Kind of Funny Games crew, they often show up to these events. They send like 4 or 5, 6 people. Like they send a lot of people to these events. I'm always surprised. I don't know if they're based in LA. Maybe that's why. But even this was in San Fran, so I'm not sure. Yeah. But yeah, Wolfheart. He's a pro. He's a G. One of the sweetest guys you'll meet too. Like absolute sweetheart. Very, very kind. Let's see. I really can't work out if Sony's greed has grown insatiable or if it's slowly being sabotaged from the inside. I have a feeling that a lot of the people within Sony are not happy with the direction they've been forced to go over the last like 5 years. That's my impression. And so I don't think there's a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth within Sony. I think a lot of the people within Sony that were around during the PS4 gen want to get back to that. I think that's where we're at. Did he get in trouble for putting permanent marker on his screen? I was surprised that he was like that he took this shot, because I'd be stressing out over like what's on the sheet, but you can't make it out because on this sheet are hella spoilers. I'll just tell you what. But no, I think he did his homework. He checked and then he covered up the screen so you can't see the start screen. Lua doesn't have her game pulled up yet. You can't really make out anything on mine, so it worked out well. He knew what he was doing, but yeah. Also, apparently this is the same area where they did a preview event thing for Immortals of Avium, which I didn't go to, but there were a couple of people here who were telling me, yeah, last time I was here, it was for Immortals of Avium. I was like, oh, oh God. Oh God. Oh man. I know, right? Someone should do a video about how weird it is that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is kind of ignored by the industry. No, I think it's just Final Fantasy VII is... It was a good game. Everybody knew it was going to be good, but it's the second part of a trilogy of a remake of a 20, 30-year-old game or whatever. And so it was exactly what everybody expected it to be. The people that liked it, played it, and loved it. And then for everybody else, they just didn't touch it. They're like, well, I didn't play Rebirth, or rather Final Fantasy VII Remake, so why would I play Rebirth? So I'm just going to move on with my day. And so it just kind of came. It was a flash in the pan, and then it went away. And I think a lot of it is, for whatever reason, those Square Enix games, they don't tend to drive a lot of online discourse. Because people want to play them. They're excited about it. They play it, and then they just move on. But they're not watching like YouTube videos. They don't want to see a lot of breakdowns. They don't want to see all that. Like, they're just good. So, in terms of like online discourse, like you could probably even look it up on Google Trends. Let's try it. Let's experiment. Let's perform an asparagus. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And then let's go, not past day. Let's do, is there a year? No. Okay. So this is right around when it launched. Okay. It hit the peak and then it trails off very, very quickly. What would we compare it to? What's like a similar, maybe Black Myth? I would assume this is going to be a similar thing. Oh God. I mean, that's pretty clear. It was nobody was really talking about it compared to Final Fantasy, and then when it popped off, it blew up. In the same way like Helldivers 2. Let's see this. Like, this is why people talk about Helldivers more than Final Fantasy. Like, they launched relatively close to each other, and look at how much longer and higher the engagement stayed. People were still making videos, making content about it, still checking it out. You know, it just was driving more content. So I know people within the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth fan base, for them, they would have thought this yellow line was Final Fantasy. But in effect, across the broader gaming industry, games like Helldivers or Black Myth, at least according to interest through Google, like the biggest compendium of data on the internet, they're saying that the interest across the internet was much higher for Helldivers and for Black Myth than it peaked with Final Fantasy. So that's why. Do Concord. Yeah, what's interesting about Concord is the spike's going to be big. Not that big. But I mean, Concord, if we turn off, let's turn off Black Myth, remove, and let's turn off Helldivers. So like Concord peaked at a 52 out of 100. So, I mean, Concord reached about half the level of interest and discussion that Final Fantasy did. Almost 100% of it was negative, I'm sure, but still, in terms of discourse. do Concord or do yeah, I can do Elden Ring, Shadow of the Air Tree. Well, maybe just Elden Ring, because that's probably going to include it. Yeah, Elden Ring, even during the launch of Rebirth, was still garnering more interest and discussion. And if you compare it to like just Helldivers, I mean, Elden Ring is huge. I wonder Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's the green line. Uh-oh. Not many people are searching for that. Seems like a lot of people know what they need to know about that so far. We'll see if the marketing can help that. I can also, maybe if I search just Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed. Not the film. Mirage. Yeah, maybe just the search term. Nah, even then. Assassin's Creed. What's another big one from this? Pal World? Pal World was huge. Let's see. Oh, God. I'm telling you, dude, when Pal World was popping off, Pal World was huge. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Check Baldur's Gate. Ooh, Baldur's Gate 3. Now, to be fair, it launched just before this. Can we do like 18 months? Custom time range. Let's get the launch window too. Let's do like May through now. Yeah, so about similar levels. I mean, when Baldur's Gate 3 popped off, it was popping off right about to the same level as Pal World and Elden Ring when it popped off, which is about what you would expect. I mean, it was about on that level. But you see, Pal World died off very quickly. You can see average discourse. People have been talking about Baldur's Gate much more consistently for a very long time, compared to like Elden Ring, which was comparatively very low after it launched, whereas Baldur's Gate still is very commonly discussed. You know, it's very much in the public discourse even now, a year after launch. So, oh, Starfield, that's an interesting one. Let me cut. Which one do I cut? Maybe I cut. Let's cut Final Fantasy, because I think you get the point. And then Starfield. Console game. Yeah, Starfield. Starfield popped off with the most discourse and traffic online of any of them. Starfield was the biggest. Now, again, in terms of averages, Baldur's Gate 3 still kills it across this time period. Even, you know, the months before. So even if we go, let's see, Baldur's Gate 3 started popping off in like July. So let's go just early. Let's go to here, like July. Maybe just there. Yeah, if you do that, the averages are even crazier. But Starfield, when it popped off, really popped off, but you see it dies out pretty quickly. Which kind of reflects the general sentiment and vibe, right? Like, you still hear people talk about Baldur's Gate. You don't hear a ton of people actively, like, trying Starfield again or going back to it. Same with Elden Ring. People played the DLC and then kind of moved on. Same with Helldivers, especially with Pal World. Pal World blew up and then basically went to zero, which is fine with single-player games. It's totally fine. Live service stuff, it's more complicated because you would expect that stuff to drive more consistent players, but very interesting, right? It's very interesting. Oh, yeah, we can do worldwide. We can even do that. I think that's going to make Pal World even more exaggerated, I would think. Yeah. Yeah. And especially if we do worldwide and we do, like, maybe I cut, well, what would be the most fair? Let me cut Starfield and then we replace it with Black Myth. If we do worldwide, Black Myth Wukong is going to be huge. I think that's going to be the biggest one. No, I'm wrong. I'm a filthy casual living in a bubble. Pal World's still at the top if you go worldwide. Again, averages, it's still Baldur's Gate, but still. Compare breakdown by region. Interest in Elden Ring was highest in Iran and Algeria, Morocco, and Japan. Huh. Baldur's Gate pretty much everywhere. That's funny. Yeah, to be fair, you're right. Google isn't really, but that's why it's not reported in China. That's why you don't have any stats there. If you go to China, it's like, you get some data, but this is all probably like, I don't think it's reliable. I think this counts as what they say is a low volume search area. But still. Let's see. Take, thank you for the 5. I really can't work out. Oh, I did just read that one. I just read that one. Thank you again for that. Petty Wop, thank you for the 5. Luke, do you think Call of Duty is close to dying or remarketing? No, I mean, it still makes billions of dollars. Everybody hates on it, but it's, in terms of volume and revenue, I think it's bigger than it ever has been before. So, no, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. It's easy for us in our bubble to be like, yep, Call of Duty sucks, but it still makes billions and billions of dollars. You know, they're doing just fine. Carnage, thank you also for subbing with Prime. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, this tool is available to you. If you go just search Google Trends or trends.google.com, you can experiment with this. And if you're ever like, am I in a bubble? Am I in a bubble? It feels like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should be way bigger than it is. Why is nobody talking about it? Why is it just so quickly dismissed? Or whatever. Like, go on here and just experiment with some of the terms that are being tracked across Google, because I think you'll realize pretty quickly if you have any like biases or things that you weren't aware of. Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the purple line. It peaks here. Like, that's why it's kind of mellowed out compared to like Baldur's Gate, which is still like, even the month of the launch, Baldur's Gate was still more popular in terms of internet discourse, what people were searching for, what people were interacting with. So it's just crazy. Yeah, we'll see. Again, we'll see how Assassin's Creed can dig themselves out of it, because it seems like there's not a lot of discourse or interest in it. But again, they also haven't marketed it like at all. So we'll see if that changes. Elder Millennial, that's a great name. Thank you for the 10. Great stuff, Luke. Started Disco Elysium last week, by the way. Amazing storytelling. Been mixing it with Outlaws. Mid-tier plus top-tier gaming combo is healthy for the soul. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Disco Elysium too, dude. That's just like such a palate cleanser in terms of gaming. Like, it's so different, but it's also just solid. You know, it just makes you feel like you're exploring part of yourself you didn't even know you had. Fantastic. They wasted all their marketing budget on Outlaws. That might have been Disney money, to be fair. I think that might have been a lot of Disney money. I'm not sure if that was actually all Ubisoft. Might have been, but I think a lot of it was Disney money. But anyway. So what we're going to do, guys, I think we'll call it there. I've got to launch this video revisiting Starfield. So we're going to do that, and yeah, it's gonna be good. Maybe we'll throw together a quick video on the PS5 Pro stuff, and we'll talk about that. I don't know if that's worth putting on the main channel, but either way, we'll go launch that. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the overwhelming support. At one point, we had 3,000 people watching in here. We're still at 1,500 people after all this time. With Twitch and everything, we're at like 1,700. You guys are amazing. You're fantastic. You're fantastic. Appreciate the gosh darn heck out of you guys. Banana has one more thing. Take top 5 games of the year so far. Oh, top 5. Oh God. And you probably gotta say like Helldivers, just in terms of popularity and discourse. I think you can say Final Fantasy. I think you can say, I think you could say, my brain is fried. Space Marine 2. I ate that up. What is this? Gears of War status? In honor of Suicide Prevention Month, Gears of War and Discord and Crisis Text Line are reminding you that no one ever needs to go through life alone. Each year we donate 1% of all net revenue across Gears of War games and merchandise to our partners working to prevent suicide and combat loneliness. If you'd like to show your support for this important cause, there are 3 ways to get involved. Help us raise funds with our partner charities. Join our Discord to grab Never Fight Alone profile banners and stickers. Pick up the 2024 limited edition benefit tee and or hoodie designed by Sam Dunn. And if you're in need of support, we encourage you to text PAUSE to 741741. Well, that's fantastic. That's great. Yeah. I'll share this in chat. Everybody go check this out. That's fantastic. Look at that. Yeah. Gears of War W right there. That's great. Yeah, everybody. Much love. Stay safe. As for top 5 games of the year so far, it's tough with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know in which order, but probably Helldivers, I think Space Marine 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. What are 2 other games that came out this year? Yeah, Dustborn. Black Myth Wukong probably gets a nod, then maybe Astrobot. I think those are safe bets. I don't know in which order, but probably those. Infinite Wealth is really good too. I think I could swap that out with probably Black Myth. Black Myth's gotten a little stale as it's gone on for me at least. But yeah, you could probably swap out Like a Dragon in there pretty easily. There's a handful of good ones. No like overwhelming favorite as far as I can tell, but yeah, some good ones. Some good ones. Anyway, much love everybody. Stay safe. I'll see you very, very soon. Make sure to go watch the new video when it goes up here in just a little bit. And until then, much love. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.